And as always, I have with me Navian. Hi, Navian.
Hello.
How are you doing? How's it been? It's been a month since we last spoke about some scripts. How has your last month been? I mean, obviously we've seen you on the channel since then, but you know.
Well, if I'm being honest, extremely stressful. But, you know, I'm alive.
That is true. You are indeed alive. Yeah, we've pulled another script from the depths of hell. Now it's a
Wow, Mullibok, is that where you live?
It's a perfectly scripty script, which we will.
Mullibok's the demon, I see.
Yeah.
Always.
And as you can no doubt tell, we are joined by its author, its creator. I suppose in this analogy, you are Satan. It's Mullibok. Hi, Satan.
Hello, how's it going?
I bet that's not the intro you're expecting. It's not the intro I was expecting.
Not in the slightest.
It's not the intro I was expecting, but
we're off to a great start, I think.
How are you? How have you been? It's been a while since we've seen you at all, I think. Tuesday's not really the best time for you, I think.
I'm happy to be here. I got in my first ever in-person games of Clock Tower in Connecticut
you did?
in the last few weeks, so yeah.
It's true. Alejo has seen my eldritch horror form.
You mean Mullibok?
Sorry, who did I say?
You said me.
Okay, I definitely can tell these two people apart, I promise.
Yeah, we're the same person, really. You can tell it's in the accent.
Uh-huh. Yes, the same sentence, but Mullibok instead.
We're all Americans around here.
I guess I lost a few sanity points in my trip, but it was fun anyway.
We're all Americans around here, and now I'm afraid, Namian, that this is the accent that you've made me take on for the rest of the stream. Oh, no. So that is all on you. So this episode's got off to a great start.
Yeah. You can tell by the fact that I just completely named the wrong person that my head is attempting to be in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't accuse our guest of being Satan, at least.
It's true.
We can only go up.
Yeah, that's right. Good way to look at it. Thank you. Somebody's got to bring the positivity here, right?
Yeah, so we've got Satan, an eldritch abomination, and somebody who has apparently teleported across the Atlantic Ocean. That's what I'm hearing here. Okay.
That tracks.
Anyway, I'm glad to hear that you are both alive. Mullibok, like I said, we've not really seen you around this server, around this channel very much, because I'm sure that our games don't really play to your time. But you know, people will recognize you from. Well, where will people recognize you from?
Probably from Twitch chat, or I play on the CT stream sometimes.
Yeah. But you've been playing the game for a while now. How long?
So, I kind of have a misconnection with Blood on the Clock Tower because I was supposed to play it at Gen Con in 2018. I have the tickets in my email that I went back and found when I was just searching for something else. But my flight was a little bit late, and I got there just right after those games started. So I did not experience the game in 2018. The first time I experienced it was in 2011 when another gaming group that I did in, there was somebody who wanted to introduce a bunch of us to it. And
do you mean 2021?
Yes. What did I say?
2011.
This is fine.
No.
All right, we've added time travel into this now.
Last year, whenever that was.
Last year, which was 10 years ago as well. Yes.
Yeah. So I got introduced through there.
Shall I press the stop streaming button so we can all start over?
No, we're doing good. We're on a roll.
Sorry, do go on.
Okay, yeah, sorry, keep going.
Got introduced through that friend. I don't know, searched up a bunch of Twitch and YouTube content, eventually found a way to various Discord servers, and this is now.
So you have been in the. I'm just pulling up the stats because this is something that I sometimes like to do. You have been in the unofficial Discord for a while. When do you think you joined? You had to put a date to it because I've got the exact date right here.
I'm sure you do. I would go August of last year.
You close. It's 23rd of July last year. Sorry, 23rd of June. 23rd of June last year. So you're a couple of months out. So yeah,
I think I joined in like April.
I think you did. Yeah. Let me have a look. I only had Mullibok pulled up. You joined on the. Oh, you joined quite early.
Oh, did I?
Did. You joined in November 2020, apparently.
That doesn't sound right.
Oh, I can send you the message proving it. Anyway, not important. Tell us about your first game, Mullibok, if you remember it. Do you remember the first game you played? Where was it?
My first game was on Discord with this group of friends I had assembled. The thing I remember the most about it is that it was, I think, only the Storyteller had experience before that. So it was a bunch of new players. A lot of people weren't sure what to do, especially the people without information. So, a bunch of us were getting suspicious of the people without information who didn't necessarily just want to say out loud what they were. So somebody nominated one of them, and that person sprung a trap card. It's actually, I see more when I was like advanced players like it said, "I'm the virgin. You should have died." and the person who nominated the virgin was the demon, and the evil team had a mad panic, and the game unraveled for them very quickly.
Do you remember what you were?
Oh, I think I did have information. I think I was probably a start knowing role. I can't remember if it was this game or maybe the second game I played, but I was the librarian who saw a drunk in one of those games.
Sure. So you got off to
Wait, were you the librarian or were you the drunk?
I was the librarian who saw a drunk. I saw a drunk, and we thought it was. At first, we thought it was on the empath, but then the other person that I saw, they died night 2, and they're like, "Hey guys, I was the soldier." It's like, "Oh, I guess you're the drunk."
So yeah, you started with a 100% winning record then.
I do think I pulled good the first couple of games and good one the first couple of games. Yeah.
There you go. Call that a streak. And when did you get into storytelling?
Oh, that took a while later. That was definitely after playing all the base scripts multiple times, when like the group had sort of expanded and branched out into having different people at experience levels good enough to start running some games. And so I started doing that with that group. It was probably a few months after I first started playing.
I think that's a pretty reasonable time frame, right? It's always important to get to know the game before you start running the game. And the other question that I always like to ask people, that I always like to spring on people, is what is the best base script, Mullibok?
Oh man, I have thought all the base scripts were the best base script at various points in time.
That's absolutely fair.
Right now, I'd probably say Trouble Brewing.
Trouble Brewing. Yeah. It is.
I agree.
It is. We are Trouble Brewing lovers around here.
Yeah.
Trouble Brewing is such a good script. But yeah,
I think I had an arc where like my group was like, we're tired of Trouble Brewing, let's jam S&V, and we jammed S&V for like multiple months, I think. And at some point it's like, You know what? The ambiguity in Trouble Brewing, where it's just like things can be true or not true for a lot of reasons. I kind of miss that.
Yeah, it's my cyclical script theory coming back.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, I don't think I've spoken to you about it, Mullibok, but I have a theory that everyone starts with Trouble Brewing, or most people start with Trouble Brewing, and then they go okay, I want to play this, but more. So you're like, oh, let's play SMV. That looks fun. And you're like, oh, this is fun, but it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. So, and also, I want something completely different. Let's play BMR, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is also fun. Let's go back to Trouble Brewing. That was nice. Let's play Trouble Brewing, and then just repeat that cycle forever.
Yep, that does sound about right.
But yeah, we actually don't bring people on to talk about the base scripts. We bring people on to talk about the scripts that they build, and then are like, hey, here's a script that I built. What do you think of it? And then we're like, well, here's what we think of it. Come here on Monday at this time. So, the script that we're going to be talking about is Are You Evil? Is this the first script that you built?
Yes. I talked about script theory with people before, but I never felt the inspiration until this was for the No Rules Bard contest. And so inspiration hit me for the contest. So that was the first time I was really like, okay, let's build something around an idea that I have.
What was that inspiration?
So the inspiration was telling myself this is for No Rules Bard, and so how can we make it themed around them? And I thought that one of the funniest, most iconic things you could think of is people getting into a call together and shouting "Are you evil?" at each other. And so that's why it's named that, and that's why it exists like it does. So the idea was to give people a lot of reasons to wonder if somebody else is evil, and often it's a well, maybe this person's evil, but maybe it's that person or this other person. So a lot of one or the other could be evil, and also it's based around so that's one part is the pings or the information, and the other part is making a lot of high stakes decisions throughout a game about whether or not to trust somebody. So that's why Damsel and Huntsman is in there, because if the Damsel and Huntsman can find each other, that's huge. But if the damsel, reads the room incorrectly and confides in a minion instead, big trouble. Same idea with the Klutz. That's why those two outsiders are in. I think the mayor and the soldier both also fit that theme of the soldier's actually incredibly strong if you think that they're a good player and you leave them alive till the final three. You're just guaranteed for that person to be somebody you can count on to do what town wants. But obviously it's so often not the case that they're trusted. Same thing with the mayor. So that's why those sort of roles are in. I mean, mayor you can just win the game off of. So also thematic. The Boom Dandy's in there for a similar reason. There's a lot of high stakes there. If that explodes, you're going to have to make a call really quickly about it. It's why Legion the Demon is in there, because there's also the Legion paranoia of, can I trust anybody? Are all these people pushing on me or pushing on a different player because they're evil and want to kill them and win the game that way? And on the flip side, there's also things like the Madness Rolls. Pixie and Sarah Novus are in there for somebody's double claiming me, but does that mean they're evil or not? Are they on my team or not? Even though they're double claiming my role or in double claim with somebody else. Same thing with Evil Twin. That's maybe the most face up, just clear case example of you have to choose one to trust and go with it and see if you're right or not. So that's a general idea.
Yeah. You built this one for the No Roll Spark competition, like you mentioned, in which it was a runner-up, I believe.
Yep, it got on the honorable mention list of 20 or so scripts.
Yeah.
Nice.
Remembrance Week, my script that we talked about previously was also on that list. So, pew pew, I finger gunned the camera.
I didn't submit a script for that contest, so I can't claim anything.
I'm sure you would have made the list as well, maybe. But yeah, we've got. Let's have a look at the script now. We've got quite a bit. It does feel like quite a trouble brewing-y script in a lot of ways. You know, we've got a lot of characters in common in the well, let's list them. Got librarian, chef, empath, fortune teller, monk, soldier, mayor, drunk, poisoner. I think that's it. You've got quite a lot of crossover with trouble brewing, so there is kind of that that crossover there. And also you've got the same sort of breakdown of characters. You've got the top four, all of the You Start Knowing, you've got 4 of them. And you've got another 4 characters, or another 5 or 6 characters that have mechanical effects every night, and then a few characters at the end that do other things. Was that intentional?
I don't know. It was more something I realized along the way than something I set out doing. I do think that sort of mechanically it worked out to be like a trouble brewing core with a good chunk of like S&V mixed in, a little custom, and then sort of the and there's also just like a cut through of the midnight type stuff with the
I heard a cat.
Like
I heard a cat.
It's a cat. It is a cat.
Hello, cat. Tell the cat we love the cat.
We do love the cat. But yeah, I would say that it is accurate that it ended up being sort of taking a lot of ideas from trouble brewing in its base. Trouble brewing does have a lot of the things where it's do I trust this person or that person? Like empath gets a 1, fortune teller gets a yes, but they don't know for sure which one it is, so they have to figure it out. So I eventually I realized that the theme has some things to do with some trouble brewing rules.
And awesome. There's an okay amount of like S&V roles in here as well, right? So there's Oracle, Seamstress, and Klutz, Serenovus, Evil Twin, and there's a pretty large influence from S&B in the demons, of course, because 3 out of the 4 of them are from S&B.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I would say that I'm really just personally drawn towards the outsider manipulation from the demons in S&V. I think it is very cool, and
me too.
And when you add in the drunk, it also gets like very, I don't know, it in S&V so much it's like, well, 2 people claimed outsider, and they died at times where we believe they're good, so therefore it's not vigor mortis or whatever. But when you add in drunk, it gets a lot more a lot trickier as to who might be the drunk and what that means about the outsider count.
Well, we can talk about some of those interesting interactions in a moment, and that is absolutely one that we will talk about. But first, let's just have a quick talk about revision history, because this isn't the script that you entered to the No Rolls Bar competition, is it? This is an evolution of that script.
And I'm sort of.
I only have prepared. I can get the other one, but I only have prepared the first and most recent versions. So let's put them side by side.
Sure.
And I think you should get version 2 prepared, because Mullibok's going to want to talk about something about that, and so will I.
Okay.
The thing about versions 2 and 3 is that they're kind of a fork in the road, where version 3 is not an improved upon version 2. It's it's more like a version 2A question mark, version 2B question mark would honestly be a more accurate way to put it.
It's like you looked at version 1, thought about revisions, and saw 2 routes to go down, so you went down both.
Yes.
Would you rather talk about the differences between 1 and 2 then, before we go into 3? And then
I think we should start with the differences between 1 and just like the changes that are definitely being made from 1. So like from 1 to 2, yeah, that works fine.
Okay, let's go. Here are versions 1 and 2 then that I've brought up on stream right now. Talk us through it.
Well, so version 1 has some BMR thrown in there because one, I thought that would be good for the competition. Two, I do think that Puka thematically fits at what I'm getting at. Like if somebody dies, they have to question if the information that they got was a result of poisoning, and they should actually trust the person their information is telling them to distrust. And on the other hand, the people who are alive are wondering, that person who died, they said they had information that I was bad and I'm a good player. But from my perspective, does that mean that they were Puka poisoned and they got bad information? Or were they a demon, a Fangu or a Legion, or a Vigor Mortis killed minion that's trying to like say that I looked evil? So that's how the Puka fit in for me, for like either the person dying or the rest of the town trying to take into account of what happened with the person dying. And then when you have Puka, it feels like you need a couple things to explain what happens when there's not a kill, so it's not just outed that you executed the
Puka poison player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Innkeeper's in there and Soldier are in there as the two ways to cover for that on the first script. So, and the unfortunate part is that I do think like BMR is so hard to fit onto other scripts. I think even this amount is hard to fit on other scripts, because I think that Innkeeper and the traceable drunkenness that this good player who's the Innkeeper will be providing people, I think it works better with the BMR mechanical roles and all the ambiguity that script causes there. I think it works better with those than with the more TB and SNV like information roles, especially because when people have their information, even if you're an empath and you have a 0, you might be fine being inkept and say, "Oh, let's just see if my number changes because that proves you," and that's not really. I mean, it doesn't necessarily prove them. There are other reasons why it would change, like it could be a poisoner faking this or whatever, but it's not really the traceable good team drunkenness. Just it doesn't feel as good here as it does on a script like BMR. So I found myself when I was running games with this script, I just didn't want to include it. I just wanted to have it as a bluff for Pukas. That's the only thing. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do with it. And I don't love Puka Mayor, where it's just like if a Mayor thinks it's a Puka game, they can't even advocate for a win, and their ability just kind of sucks.
And you know what? Poisoner's on the script too, and I can't remember what script I was playing, but there was a script that we played not that long ago. I think it might have been on the TPI stream, and I was the Mayor, and I realized, like, when we were world solving, we came to the conclusion that the game was most likely both Puka and Poisoner. And I was just like the saddest fucking Mayor in the world. I was like, there's absolutely no way that we can go for a Mayor win today. And, on this final day when there's 3 people alive, and it's just like, it's so sad.
Yeah, so it's sad for them. It's sad for Farmer, although like that's more information. If the farmer dies and they can figure out that either the person who's claiming Farmer now is evil, or if nobody's claiming it, they at least figure out the demon type. But it still feels kind of bad. It might it could also feel really bad for a huntsman who gets the right pick, I guess. It's just I do like how it interacts with the information rolls, people dying, but the more mechanical stuff, it's just a little awkward. And I also felt like maybe there was like 0.5 too much poisoning in this version, where in any given game it might be fine, but then there are going to be these spikes where the Vigor kills the poisoner, there's a Puka and a poisoner, and just like nobody has information, or like information that they can rely on at all. And that's and that could be like okay sometimes, but it's a little against what I think a lot of people enjoy about getting their information on the good team. So it's like I don't know. I felt like it just bugged me for honestly months. Like whenever I thought about it, it's just in the back of my mind where it's like, you could revise this, and so that's what led to the other versions, is trying to act on this idea of you can revise this.
Yeah, you. We were saying earlier that you can make a script like Are You Evil version 3, that very much looks like a Trouble Brewing with a Sex and Violets element. You can't really do that with BMR because, like, you take any character from BMR and put it in TB, and something will break. Like
Pretty much, yeah.
you can reasonably well fit most SMV characters into TB, and they might be a bit powerful, they might be a bit weak, but you'll get a game. Whereas you take any BMR character, any at all, and something will break if you put it on that script.
Yep, even just the simple innkeeper.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think of the roles on BMR, Innkeeper is probably the one that like can be slated into the most scripts by itself, but like
it functionally becomes it functionally on an information heavy script becomes a double monk, right? If there's no cool interactions for the monk, at least with the demons, it becomes a double, because you can't really use the drunkenness that effectively.
Yeah, and if they just find the librarian and the noble, then those people are just safe.
Yeah.
Period.
Right. Yeah. You find the start knowing roles, and now you just have two players that are just gonna, keep staying alive until you die.
Yeah. So you removed the innkeeper from both versions. What did you add? What other changes did you make for version 2? Your first path forward?
Yeah. So when removing those, I thought about adding in some roles that were better at being straight up Legion detectors. I think one of the first changes was inspired by the fact that I didn't want Spy on because I didn't want the Spy Damsel Jinx, and so, but I did have Undertaker on the previous one. It's like, well, that like some people really enjoy trying to make cold call Undertaker reads and trying to prove themselves that way, even when they're not the Spy. But if you're not one of those people, then the Undertaker can kind of just confirm themselves if the game plays out in a certain way. And so I thought that Oracle was an interesting change because we do have a lot of the SMV demons already, even before this change, and we have Legion,
and specifically the SNV demons that would cause evils to die in the night, potentially quite early, right? A Vigor Mortis who kills a minion first thing, or a Fengu who jumps right off the bat.
If you get a 1 with either of those demons, it is very ambiguous about whether you executed a minion or if the Fengu jumped or if the demon killed their minion.
Yeah.
I'd argue it doesn't really work as a Legion detector in most cases, because in a Legion game as the Oracle, you usually expect to get a 2 specifically. Not every time, but more often than not, I think you get a 2.
On night 2, maybe, but like the reality is that if you're in a Legion game as an Oracle, you're probably sticking around for more or less the entire time. So you are going to start, like, even if on night 2, like for whatever reason, let's say good executed one of the good players on day 1, and so the first night kill is a Legion and you just get a 1. Well, the very next night, that's probably going to suddenly become a 3.
Sure.
Yeah, like
I'm talking about it from like the other angle. Like the Oracle is quite a hard. It's definitely not Legion in a way that's not always the most interesting, but obviously from everyone else's perspective, it could be Legion.
Sure. There's also the drunk on the script, though, right?
True. But that's an interaction that also exists in the version 3, I believe, so we can talk about that when we get there.
Yep, but I like the thing with the chef was on, so we have the Pixie wearing the chef's hat. So that's an important addition.
I was going to bring that up.
And the Oracle is on, and those are the ones who can get high Legion numbers in a way that like a fortune teller could get a bunch of yeses, maybe, but I guess an empath can also get it too, but that's not. It doesn't prove it as hard, and so
right,
I
not
thought
with vortox on there.
So I thought it's time for another S&V demon. It's time for the vortox, because vortox and Legion. I mean, you see them on scripts together pretty often. On scripts with a lot of information rules, at least for this reason.
There's a reason for that.
That it can like single-handedly sort of create that ambiguity of an oracle. It's like, well, I know it's one of these two, or I could be the drunk. Or it could be widow poison on this script. So this is one of the tough decisions to make when you have vortox on a script, is because like, what do you do with the poisoner? So in version 2, I thought, okay, let's just go mostly information, lean harder into information than previously. I think there's more information roles on the script than there were before. And then that does leave a poisoner with nothing to do. So let's take out the poisoner. Let's put in the widow, because I actually think that, like, one, a widow can self-poison in a vortox game and still get information to the demon. And that's something that, they can still feel good about. But I honestly think that's the widow choosing to send out the widow ping in a vortox game, and you can still poison the mayor, the farmer, or whatnot, but just sending out the widow ping.
Oh, no, wait, you can't,
no, you
because
can't.
the huntsman can't be in. Never mind.
I guess you could poison a drunk huntsman.
You could poison a drunk huntsman, but why?
Well, I think just being able to send out the widow pig and having the chef say, I got a 5, and there's somebody who says they got a widow pig. So is that person Legion? Or is something else going on? Like, I actually think, like, the mechanic of the widow ping is a bit undervalued by a lot of people when they think about widow, and I think there's value for the evil team even in having a widow ping go out. So that's the biggest minion change here. And then the other townsfolk change, I think I added in the general as sort of a way to get meta information about the game. Like, mathematician doesn't feel exactly right here on a script without no dashi. It doesn't seem like it fits as well as it fits in S&V. So I thought, like, a general that could provide, like, meta information about what's happening in the game and, like, how do things look from the storyteller point of view. That seemed like the last piece there. So this is one version. This is one fork in the road.
Okay, but there is something that I want to talk about that is very specific on this script that
Yes.
you kind of don't like, which is the widow damsel jinx.
Okay, so one of the things I was happy about when I was doing the competition for the first time is in the middle of the period of that competition, they removed the Saranova's Undertaker jinx when I had both those roles. So it's like, yes, this is a jinx-free script. And it's one of the reasons that Spy was not on the initial version, is that I just didn't want jinx characters. It felt better to submit a clean script where you don't have to say, there are special rules. But the widow does introduce one special rule, which is that the widow and the damsel cannot both be in play for obvious reasons. So a damsel knows there's no widow, and a huntsman knows there's either no widow or they're specifically the drunk. I don't think it's like not the worst only one jinx to have on a script, but it did pain me a bit to add a jinx onto it.
So I understand that, and I will say that nobody has to agree with me here. I definitely get the point of view that some people are like, if there's a jinx where they both can't be in play, then, like, it's probably just poor script design and change something. But personally, I actually really like the Spy Widow and Damsel Jinx specifically, and that's because the stakes that are involved, right? A huntsman would potentially think that they are the drunk, so they actually can't be sure. But the damsel can absolutely be sure that if somebody is claiming to have seen a widow, they are just 100% lying. But they can't actually come out with why, because there's only one role on this script that would know that for 100% certain, and they can't push on it. And I love the tension between that jinx, right? It's one of the possibly the only jinx where neither of these roles can be in play together, that I actively enjoy and think adds a specific tension to a script. But I can certainly understand the viewpoint of not having any jinxes on the script. It looks nice, it feels nice, it runs clean and smooth. Nobody needs to be aware of any weird interactions or anything.
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much exactly that. It's not with the spy, it's only really with the widow, although you can kind of get the sense that there might be a spy in play from various things, but with the widow, someone is like...
Yeah, with the widow, it's the loudness of it, right?
With the widow, someone is like, I learned there's a widow in play, and then the damsel is like, no, you didn't.
The fuck you did.
And then the widow's like, why do you say that? I'm the savant, and I learned that either there is no widow in play or we're playing Trouble Brewing.
Yeah, that's a good point with the widow specifically because of the ping. That's an interesting point.
I also agree with kind of like what you were saying earlier, which is that the fear of misinformation is just as bad as, or sometimes even worse than, misinformation itself within the game. If you, as an evil team, can successfully cause enough confusion about who is the drunk, who's been poisoned when, where, why, how, that can have a massive impact on, your team, the evil team, benefiting by the confusion of that. And the widow makes it very public and very loud, and everybody has to work under the potential suspicion that maybe it was me, or maybe it's just Legion and this player is lying.
Yeah. I do actually, now that I think about it, I do want to run a game of this script and give the savant the statements, there is no widow in play, or we are playing Trouble Brewing, except it's a vortox game.
Well, now you've given it away.
Yeah, now I've given it away. I can actually run this game, it'll be Legion, and someone could bluff that I've done that.
True.
But yeah, I think we can talk about the script that we're focusing on now, unless there's anything else that you want to bring up for this script in particular.
For version 2, no. I mostly just wanted to talk about the Widow Damsel Jinx and how I actually love it, even though pretty much every other these can't be in play together Jinxes is because they just suck together.
Yeah. My least favorite is Preacher and Legion. But anyway, not the point. Here is version 3, which is the one that we are really here to talk about, and its comparison to version 1, which we've got up. So again, you made a few different changes this time, so some of the same. Like we said earlier, Oracle is still in. You've still got the Pixie and the Chef hat, so it's an 11 out of 10 script.
General is Monk instead, though.
General is Monk instead, yeah. So there's not a whole lot different, but do talk us through the changes that you did make.
So this one was asking, what if we kept a poisoner on a script that has a vortox? So this one retains a few more of the mechanical roles. So a vortox with a poisoner. The poisoner, well, for one thing, having a monk and a vortox on the same script is always fun. That's an interesting interaction. But the poisoner could also either snipe the monk or pretend to be a monk who's changing someone's information, saying, "Oh, you're getting non-vortox information now." There's something like that when they're actually getting fake information in a non-vortox game. So
a part of me wants to suggest that you put on something so that monk might be able to be evil. Evil monk in a vortox game is just like one of the fucking funniest things to me.
they're just the actual poisoner.
Yeah, they're like a reverse poisoner, and it's just hilarious.
Protect poison your demon first night.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I've never thought of that, but you could actually do that.
That's clever.
I've never thought of that poisoner vortex interaction, but yeah, you could just take a shot at it, I suppose. Otherwise, the soldier is retained down here when it wasn't retained for the other fork in the road option, and so That's another poisoner hit. The farmer's a poisoner hit. The poisoner can't hit the huntsman where the widow can't, so that's another one they could snipe. And of course the mayor. So at least like
there's a good amount of
not quite half, but
here,
at least the poisoner has something to do, even if the demon is a vortox.
Imagine poisoning the Klutz though when they die, and then they pick an evil player. That is so sad.
But also, it's not the worst thing because it sets that player up to be really trusted, right?
It does, yeah. And if that player is actually like a minion in a Vigor Mortis game, it's very convenient because then you just kill them. If it happens somewhat later in the game and it turns out that the Klutz ends up confirming your demon, great.
Yeah. Because usually, it's not the same as with like a good player drunking the Klutz that leaves a trail. With the poisoner, it's just okay. If we're building worlds where that player is evil, we also have to include this Klutz, and suddenly there's one too many evil players.
Right, yeah. It comes down to like a very niche scenario of like, ooh, I think the player the Klutz picked is confirmed, so either, is evil, so either they're evil together, or very specifically the Klutz was poison killed, which is like technically a thing that can happen, but it feels like such a kind of out there possibility, right? That
I've been in a game with an executed poison saint, so an executed poisoned Klutz is, it's about that same level. The Klutz also has to pick an evil player there too, so it's like even more steps. But I'm sure if you ran it back enough, it would happen.
I've never seen.
Yes, I'm certain it would at some point.
Yeah, I have never seen a saint die to execution and have the game continue, unfortunately. But I have shown players receiving the Undertaker token, the Saint, on 2 separate occasions.
Well, I also haven't been in a game and gotten to see the Poisoned Saint, although I did get a DM from, I think it was Malishon, who was storytelling a game where that happened on the Connecticut server.
Amazing.
Malishon was playing with me as a player, not the storyteller, in the game where this happened. Kev was the one running it, because I remember him saying that he muted his mic and couldn't stop laughing. But an Undertaker got a sober reading of Saint that game.
Maybe it was Malishon as a player might have sent it to me. But although I also feel like Malishon as a storyteller has sent me a screenshot before of that.
I would believe it.
Yeah.
The holy
and somehow I managed to miss both of these games. So sad.
We had a goblin claim goblin and get executed and die in a game yesterday that didn't end the game, which was kind of sad.
Oh dear.
Minstrel.
Minstrel
is one
that I would hard jinx those if I could.
Yeah, I feel like Minstrel is one of those roles that like people look at it and think that they can transpose Minstrel into other scripts a little easier than certain other BMR mechanical roles, like the execution survival stuff, but like you really can't. Minstrel really does not fit into a lot of custom scripts.
Yeah, the Minstrel is the bane of my life. I do not like the Minstrel off script at all. I'm sure it's possible to build a script with the Minstrel that isn't BMR. I have yet to see it.
It is quite difficult, yeah.
Yeah, see it without any major
Unshockingly,
problems.
You have to include a whole lot of other night death manipulation, including extra deaths or no deaths.
I think the death prevention stuff that isn't Innkeeper, I think those are the hardest roles to take off of BMR.
I tell a lie, it works fine on Gold from Moon Rocks.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
I wonder why.
But yeah, Minstrel is not on this script, so I don't know why we're talking about it.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, this is a script with an evil. Evil Twin doesn't care about Minstrel, actually. Now to think about. Oh no, it does, but not in the same way.
It does if you have a good Evil Twin, but that's not possible on this script. So
yeah, and also if you know that you executed a minion yesterday, but it's
that's true. Yeah, if you're in a Minstrel day, then you can just execute, and you believe the Minstrel, then you can just execute whichever of the twins, and it doesn't matter.
I saw a game like that on stream, except they killed the demon instead, and the game just ended because the twins.
I was in that game, Mullibok. I was the Serenovus in that game. It was it was on Gen Con. It was unfortunate.
It's so sad.
Yeah, I decided to play Outed Evil towards the mid game, and it did cost us the game. So these things happen.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
Yeah. But yeah, no minstrel.
No.
But so we've got the monk in and the oracle in and the vortox in, and those are the changes from version 1.
I think the chef also is a new addition.
Oh, the chef is a new addition. What are we losing? Oh, we're losing the savant.
Yep.
Yes.
What's the thought behind losing the characters that we've lost? So we've lost the savant, the undertaker, and innkeeper and cooker. We've spoken about the innkeeper. What's the thought with
the reason the savant didn't make it on this one? I think, I don't know. I know some people don't like savant recluse, and savant fits really well with the duality theme of the, it's this world or this world, and you have to figure out if the people who are evil in world A or if it's the people who are evil in world B that are correct. But I don't know. I still like savant. I think it can make it, but it mainly was marginal because of recluse, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
that's fair. Yeah,
that's a storyteller thing, right? Like, a storyteller can choose not to mess with the savant like that, but I suppose the players don't know if the storyteller has chosen that.
It is true, but also, like, if evil bluffs recluse, it like creates the same. I don't know. It's that thing of, like, do you think the recluse is actually evil or not? I guess.
Yeah.
And if you do, then you can disregard that. But if you're not sure, then it's like, well, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting for sure. But yeah, let's talk about version 3 then in it by itself. And here it is, version 3. But since we kicked off with the recluse, Naveen, your favorite outsider, let's talk about that for a bit. You're aware I have issues with the oracle, but it's not my least favorite. It's not my least favorite character to pair with the recluse by any means.
Yeah.
But I think aside from that, there are some really, really quite interesting things here. And the one that I'm going to flag immediately is the librarian. Not counting the huntsman, all of the outsider manipulation comes from the demons. So that librarian can get a librarian 0 in a base 1 minion game and not know if there is a recluse in play or a vigor mortis in play or legion in play.
You mean a base 1 outsider?
Sorry, base 1 outsider, and not
or
know
a
if
vortox.
Or a vortox, yeah, and not know if that is caused by one of the demons or caused by the recluse or some combination of the two.
Could be caused by legion as well, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Legion, Vig, and vortox all do it. Poisoner can do it. Drunk can do it. So I think a librarian getting a 0, particularly in a base 1 outsider, is really interesting here.
I agree. I really like that interaction.
Yeah, like you see the librarian get a 0 in a base 1 game of Trouble Brewing, and I think that's interesting enough as it is. But yeah, here it just takes another step, and that's the first thing that really jumped out to me with the librarian here.
Yeah, I mean, a librarian in Trouble Brewing who gets a 0 on a base 1 count just explicitly knows, okay, either I am specifically the drunk or I have been poisoned, right? Whereas here, there's a lot more. Well, I guess it could also be a recluse in play, right? But here, there's a lot more than that. Yes, it could be a recluse in play. Yes, it could be a poisoner. Yes, they could be the drunk. Those are all the same options from Trouble Brewing. But now you have 3 demons that could potentially also be the reason for it.
Yeah,
I think a librarian in a base 0 that sees a drunk when there's either a Fingu or a vortox potentially in play, I also think that's interesting because it's like, well, I'm being presented with a couple of very different worlds right now. And Fingu and vortox are very different worlds, but I can't distinguish them by myself.
Right. You specifically have to work with other roles on the script to try to solve which one it is.
Yeah, I think.
Or you could be the drunk yourself, and then you have to wonder, do I really want to out this, or am I going to get the Fengu jump?
Yep.
I think the only thing that is potentially a little bit sad is a librarian getting specifically a klutz in as good information, as it gives the klutz a really easy pick. But I think that there's usually things that a storyteller can do to prevent that from being the case.
Yeah, I definitely. When I put librarian on the script to begin with, I definitely thought that drunken damsel by far the two most interesting things to see. One of my experiments with it involved showing the librarian a damsel between a damsel and a minion, and the game ended quickly. I decided to see how that would go, and the game ended very quickly.
You know what I will say about the librarian Klutz base 1 pairing is that it does for sure mean that these players are on the same team, but from everybody else's perspective, that could just be a vigor kill minion, right?
Yeah, but if the Klutz and librarian find each other on day 1, which of and they actually manage to convince Tam to execute the Klutz, which of these minions is going to want to be executed on the first day and have the game continue?
I
Legion,
never thought about this interaction before, but honestly, this is you're kind of giving me a point in favor of switching back to Widow here, because a librarian who sees a Klutz on a Widow script is not quite so trusted.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It wouldn't be true if you had a Spy or a Widow, but you don't right now. So yeah. Are there any other interesting interactions with the librarian there that we've not covered? Okay.
I mean, like, one thing that I think is worth looking at is how would any of these townsfolk roles do as being a twin, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a bit. I think that the librarian is often not a good twin unless they're going to get false information for whatever reason.
I think the librarian is fine if you're going as a twin, if you're going to show them a drunk, because that is almost certainly what your evil twin librarian is going to claim to have seen, right?
Yeah.
But if you show the librarian a damsel,
that might be. They can't really out that information because they know that
exactly.
there's a minion who's looking for
I saw the damsel between
them.
No.
I'm going to prove myself. The damsel is one of these two players. One of you knows I'm right. And, evil twin, have fun with that information.
So I would say that librarian is a little bit more limited than some of the other roles might be as being in a twin pair, but it can definitely be set up to be potentially interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there are roles which it's unfortunate to make the twin in SMV, right? Like the Dreamer, if it's not a vortox.
Right.
The Sage, although that's more analogous to the Farmer and the Soldier on the script.
Right, yeah.
So I don't think it's the end of the world if there are some characters that aren't. But while we're talking about librarian damsel with the evil twin interaction, how do you two feel about twin huntsman?
That damsel's definitely going to be sweating.
Yes.
Man, that is interesting, because you could have, in a 2-minion game, the other minion try to pick up the bluff of, oh, this person actually got it right. We need to kill the other one. It's a very risky play, because if you're red, you're very exposed. But I mean, there are reasons where even if the huntsman hits, they might not be trusted.
I mean,
I would say that as the other minion, you can definitely try to bluff that, and as long as the damsel, the actual damsel, has not been chosen by the actual huntsman, you can possibly get away with that. If the damsel has already been turned, then you're probably fucked, because now you have another hard sort of twin-ish claim, right? Of being, I'm the damsel who got turned, so I can't be guessed anymore, and I'm coming out with, with that and pairing myself up with explicitly one of these twins. So it could create an interesting dynamic there.
I mean, if you're going for the damsel win condition, you could also just do it just to read the reactions of other people and see if anybody's reacting like they know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if the damsel hasn't been guessed already and you try that, then that's probably going to tell the damsel who the real huntsman is, I suppose. Although there are convoluted plays that you could no doubt make where neither of you are actually the huntsman and you're both minions and it's all a big bluff. But realistically, if one of your twin huntsman suddenly says, "I found the damsel. It's this player," and they're like, "Yeah, I'm the damsel." Completely confirming them, and that twin is going to take the other twin aside. That damsel is going to take the other twin aside and go, "Hey, you mind picking me? All good."
Imagine two minions faking that they are twins together when they're not, but they're faking twin huntsmen because they know that there's no damsel in play, so that their demon can take the damsel bluff.
Oh my god.
I don't know what to think of that. Maybe if they're the Fangu, that could be interesting, because otherwise then, because you can't really claim to be the damsel, right? While you're still alive, if you're the demon.
I mean, you could claim that one of them actually did it, and let's just prove it and execute the other evil twin, and they're definitely just gonna die.
I suppose you could do that. That is so interesting. But when I actually suggested that, I was kind of looking at it from the opposite perspective. That damsel is going to be, if you've got twin huntsmen, that damsel is going to be, I'm completely pointless. I don't want to talk to either of these two for the entire game until you solve it and execute one of them based off maybe an empath information or noble information or something like that. And at that point, that damsel knows exactly where the huntsman is, assuming it's not a huge bluff, obviously. But so that could potentially give you that late game townsfolk that you might just tip the balance if the damsel survives that one.
Yeah, as long as they don't get Fangu jump first, but then they can fake being turned.
And then they're just fine with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was curious to get your opinions on Huntsman Damsel, because it does, like, on the surface of it, you look at it and you go, "Oh, that's rough. I don't like that." But then you think about it for a bit, and there's a lot of depth to it.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm a pretty big fan of how Huntsman Damsel plays out in games. I was actually in one of my in-person games. I was a damsel who, thanks to somebody making the connection, found the huntsman and got turned to night 2. It was like the happiest I've ever been in a game of Clock Tower. And it was Jackie who turned me. I just like stood up on day 2 and just gave her a hug. It's like, oh my god, we did it! I'm so happy.
When I introduced my angel group to the damsel, I think my huntsman was a bit confused in the first game and thought it was like, you can keep guessing. So it's like, do you want to use your ability? And they said yeah, and pointed at a player on the first night of the game. Yeah, they hit the damsel. So I went to the damsel and said, "Hi, first night of the game, you are now the amnesiac." And my damsel spent the first 3 days of amnesiac guesses trying to figure out how, like, what the part of their amnesiac ability was that caused them to become the amnesiac.
that's the perfect townsfolk to turn them into in that situation.
And then the huntsman was like, "Yeah, no, I picked Sam." And Sam's like, "Oh, I see." It was a game. It was certainly a game.
So I don't know. I like what Huntsman Damsel does to games. I think the sad thing for damsels is when everybody's sharing their information really openly, and
and it leads to the damsel by process of elimination.
Okay, it's like, okay, so this person has bad information, so I'm just gonna guess them. So I think it can also,
or they end up playing a demon bluff.
Yes, that could also definitely happen. But I think it could be kind of a nice reason to encourage people to be like a little bit cagier if they even think there might be a damsel in play. To just be, it's just a different play experience.
I love characters that break matters.
I specifically there are people who think that Huntsman is a weak townsfolk, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, right? They're a townsfolk who specifically ensures that there is a character that could cause a loss condition for your team in play, and the odds of you finding a damsel before either one of you die is fairly low. So I definitely understand the argument that Huntsman is a weak townsfolk, but I love how Huntsman being on the script fundamentally changes the aspects of how the damsel might play, right? So if you can definitely have a script that has a damsel with no huntsman. That exists. It is legal, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it does reduce the damsel down to very specifically, I must hide at all costs. There is absolutely nothing else to do with this character except hide until I die. Or maybe on some scripts get a Fangu jump. But you're just hiding. Whereas when the huntsman is on the script, it kind of encourages the damsel to like maybe be a little bold. For better or for worse, because maybe you got lured in Minion, sure. Or maybe you just found your huntsman who's going to turn you into something. I think that having them as a pair is inherently more fascinating for the damsel than anything else. So I really like when they're on scripts together, even though you can viably have just the damsel.
Oh, what I like about Huntsman too is that it's another person who's allied with the damsel on not on making sure the evil team just doesn't figure out who the damsel is, because they have this information and they can encourage people to play around it or play around it themselves. I love bluffing damsel as the huntsman.
Yes, absolutely. And you're probably the best person to try to get a minion to guess you, right? Because technically on the script, yes, you could be the drunksman, but you can be fairly certain most of the time that there is definitely a damsel in play, and you can try to act certain ways or try to you can go up to somebody that you might suspect is evil and just sort of act like you're hemming and hawing and be like, well, okay, you're the only person that I'm going to tell this to. I don't trust anybody else with it, and try to convince them like you're actually just the damsel. You're in the best position to than anybody else.
Yep, or really encourage that people should really think about executing you sometime. But you might appear like the boom dandy on the script, but
right.
the evil team who knows you're not, they might take a close look at you that way.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. What other characters do you want to see in twin pairs? There's a couple that don't work that we've kind of touched on. Farmer Soldier, and mostly Farmer and Soldier that kind of go against the point of it. Like as I said with the Sage on SMV, there are no characters that really don't work in the same way that the Dreamer doesn't work. Like, there's no characters that are going to be able to get confirmable information beyond the Librarian, I suppose, and maybe to a lesser extent the Pixie. I think the only one that's probably not ideal, kind of going in the opposite direction, well, not the same direction, but for a different reason, is the Mayor.
Right, yeah. Twin mares, you just... twin mares you can't leave alive. You'd have to specifically kill the evil twin in the mare pair in order for the mare to be able to get a mare win.
Right, it's kind of a completely pointless ability. If you get them alive late game, then you kill the right one and then win the game with a Mayor win, but probably at that point the Mayor is confirmed, so the demon just attacks the Mayor and the Storyteller just goes, yeah, that's fair. So it's
unless you've killed the demon first, of course.
Unless you kill the demon first, but in that case, you win the game when you kill the evil twin.
But so the game's just over.
Again, the Mayor ability doesn't really come into play with Mayor twins, so that's just another kind of unfortunate one, I think. But other than that, the townsfolk are all quite interesting. But here's an interesting one. I mean, obviously, the absolute worst one is the damsel. Never have a good twin damsel. But here's the interesting one. You wake up on day one as a townsfolk, and you're evil, and you have two people pointing at each other, claiming they're the evil twin, I'm the good twin, and they are claiming different characters.
Yeah, that looks like twin drunks.
There are a few things it could be. It could absolutely be twin drunks, but it could also be twin pixies.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Twin drunks or twin pixies, yep.
And it's usually twin drunks aren't ideal, because it's like, oh, my other twin isn't claiming the same as me. Yes, I'm the drunk. But also, if I'm the evil twin here, and obviously we'll talk about this later in the how you play it, but I'm tempted to just claim a different character anyway.
Yeah, you can bluff if you know that your good twin is a townsfolk. You can claim something entirely different and say, try to give them the impression that they're actually the drunk. You can flat out have a private conversation with them and say, "So, what do you think you are? I have bad news for you. You're actually the drunk." You can have a drunk twin and just flat out tell them as well if you'd like. But you can certainly bluff that your twin is the drunk when they're not.
You can have a chat with your demon and get a demon bluff like any other minion, and then you can claim to be that, and then you're not going to get double claimed. So either of you could legitimately be the drunk. You're both claiming to be a character
that nobody else is claiming.
Yeah. Although if you do end up claiming a character that someone else is claiming, back into Pixie. There.
I actually think Twin Pixies is kind of interesting because from everybody else's perspective, there's going to be one player out there who's going to believe one of the Pixies, right? If you as a minion are, you can wait until a little bit later to get a claim from somebody else that you think is true. If you did have a widow on the script, you could coordinate with a widow as well to successfully try to bluff as a Twin Pixie and try to win a townsfolk trust. But if you end up successfully calling a role that's in play, and your good twin, of course, is also calling a role that is in play, town might actually have to consider that you are in fact two minions who just both managed to get into double claims and are trying to back into a Twin Pixie thing.
Yeah. Let's say that you are the good twin who is the Pixie. How much are you going to go into the character that the storyteller has shown you, assuming it's not something like the soldier? And how much are you likely to just go, "Hey everyone, hands up, I am the Pixie. I'm telling you this because I'm the good twin, and it's important that you all know that I know that this character is in play, and therefore I'm good." That kind of binds you to another player.
I think it's pretty tempting to let it go for a day or two, and if somebody dies and you get your ability because
you can prove yourself to that person.
You could say, "Boom, I know you're this because I'm the Pixie and I know when you died."
Yeah. I think those are very much the two sides of it. I think there's cases to be made both ways, but I think there's always a case to be both ways. I don't think everyone knows that I love conditional madness. But I think there is also a place for Pixies to just go, "Hey everyone, day one, I'm the Pixie." Yeah. It's a powerful information roll.
The only time that I have done that pretty much immediately, I gave it like a day, but I had seen an amnesiac and I had decided by the time this amnesiac, I'll give it a day, and if the amnesiac doesn't just die immediately, then I'm just going to out as Pixie, because by the time that I even get around to getting my amnesiac ability, am I really going to have time to try to solve what my ability is? And I decided the answer to this is probably no. And then I learned at the end of the game that actually I had seen the bounty hunter turned evil amnesiac, and I really wasn't all that happy with that.
I think the one character on this script that I would be quite inclined to do that with is the mayor, because if you're claiming mayor the whole game, and then the mayor dies at some point, and you're like, "Cool, I have the ability," but everyone knows that you were both claiming mayor, and then the next day you're like, "Oh, I'm the Pixie," and everyone's like, "Yeah, we figured that out." The poisoner also figured that out, and there's absolutely no tell that you didn't get the ability. So I think.
Right.
I think if I'm the Pixie and I see the mayor, I'm going to be, maybe not publicly, but to someone I'm going to be like, "Yeah, I'm the Pixie, I don't want the ability. If the mayor dies, but I know there's a mayor in the game."
Yeah, I think as a Pixie, I would probably also prefer that the original mayor just make it through the game for specifically that reason, right? If the poisoner hits you when you were supposed to have gained that ability, you'll have absolutely nothing telling you that happened, and you'll just have to go on faith. Which, to be fair, a lot of mayors in a Final 3 are also somewhat doing that, right? They're kind of crossing their fingers and hoping and praying that please let there not be a poisoner who's poisoned me right now.
Well, we've kind of moved on from the evil twin to the Pixie, so is there anything else we want to talk about while we're talking about the evil twin? We've got the noble and the chef, both of which get early game info. We've got the Empath, the Fortune Teller, and the Oracle, which are kind of the ongoing information on the script. The Monk could be a bit of a weird one, maybe.
I think a twin monk who gets a successful protection is really interesting, because your evil twin is probably going to claim to have protected somebody else.
Yeah. And if they feel that it's necessary and it's likely to back up the bluff, then the demon can always sink.
Yep. But yeah, I think I agree with you on your assessments that Farmer's probably not the right choice. Soldier and Mare, not really the right choices for twins with, but there's definitely cases to be made for any of these other abilities to be in a twin.
Damsel definitely the wrong choice.
And yeah, Damsel definitely not.
It's worse than evil twin politician.
Yeah, that's yep.
Apologies to
at least the game would end.
You know who you are if you're watching. Seamstress, it's fine. It's as good as it is on S&V here. I don't see any reason why it's too different there.
Yeah.
And Recluse is fine. Klutz is another kind of weird one, because they're also a death triggered ability. But I suppose that the Klutz twin is likely to die in the late game when they've as opposed to the standard, or a standard, not the standard, but a fairly standard Klutz meta of kill me day one. That way, I've got the most options.
If I was the Klutz, I might encourage Town to act a little sooner than usual.
Yeah,
on choosing which one's evil.
The Klutz good twin really doesn't have that luxury.
I will say that this is something that I sometimes talk about when I'm talking about S&B as well, is I think that if there are twins on the script, those twins, one of them or both of them, should die in the night far more frequently than we ever see it happen. I do understand why it doesn't happen, and why most people think it would only happen if it's a Vigor Mortis as the demon, but that's exactly why you should all be doing it more frequently in any script that has especially a Vigor Mortis and an evil twin. Just kill a fucking twin. If that is a problem roll, if it is a really strong roll, right? If your fucking evil twin is paired up with the fortune teller and you're like, shit, I don't like that, just kill one of them in the night and watch the carnage. This is especially helpful if you know that there is an oracle who you can poison, or who the evil twin, if you kill them in the night, would likely poison. Because then, I was a Nodashi in an SMB game poisoning an oracle, and I killed my evil twin in the night, and it led to the good twin being executed before they could use their seamstress ability. And it led to a lot of confusion about who could potentially be evil there. And I think if I hadn't been snake charmed, I think evil stood a really good chance of winning, in part because the very first thing that I did was kill my evil twin.
Yeah.
Kill twins in the night.
Yeah, I think one of my absolute favorite things to do on SMV is weird things as a demon. It's perfectly designed for it, the script. You're playing a game of SMV, you're on night 2, you know who the dreamer is, you know that who the unspent artist is, you know all of this information. Sink or kill. What's the worst that could happen? Sink or kill.
I think if I had evil twin Klutzes, I would probably kill them in either order. Doesn't really matter the order that you kill them, unless maybe there's an oracle out there that might help solve things. But if you especially if you have oracle as a bluff, go ahead and just kill your Klutz twins, both of them, right in a row, and see what town makes of that, because both of them are going to be aligning themselves with a very specific person. With any luck, of course, the actual Klutz might just for you pick an evil player. That would be fantastic. But if that's not what happens, if the game continues when the actual Klutz ends up picking somebody, then, you now have an evil twin claiming Klutz who's aligned themselves with somebody, and a good Klutz who has aligned themselves with somebody. And then town has to get into sort of meta-ing things about okay, well, which one of these do we think is evil, but even if we have solved which one of them we think is more likely to be evil, do we think they have chosen an evil player to try to quote unquote clear them, or have they chosen a good player in order to make themselves look more trustworthy to that player and or align themselves with that player and make everybody else think they're evil? Like, there's some really interesting mind games that you could potentially play if you have twins that, twin klutzes, and you just kill them.
Yeah, all I'm saying is...
I will say too that on this script, if you kill a twin in the night, Legion's going to come to my mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, guys,
that too.
What's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, basically what I was just saying can just be boiled down to just be weird in SMB. It's fine.
Yeah, just be weird in anything. Weird. Just do weird shit, and you'll find that it often works to your advantage as long as you're doing different weird shit. If you do the same weird shit every single time, people will just start calling you out on it because it's no longer weird. It's just your normal. Yeah. But yeah, if you just do weird and different shit, like killing your twins in the night, especially if there's vigor on the script, because people will be like, oh no, what if that's a vigor killed twin and we can't execute this living player? And they will just start to panic about that, and they'll just have to eventually at some point make a call. And then what happens when you kill them both successively? People are going to be really confused, and confusion almost always benefits the evil team.
Yeah, the more you're talking about who the evil twin is, why did the evil twin die, why did the good twin die, why didn't this player die, why did that player die, the less time people have to be talking about who the demon is. And that is
it just sucks up all the air in the room.
That is the mystery that you need to solve to win the game. Not who the twin is if they're dead, who the demon is. So yeah, I think we're pretty much done with the twins. So we were then talking about twin pixies before we were then talking about pixie. I don't remember. So yeah, which of these characters works well with the pixie to you?
I would say that a monk would work well, a seamstress would work well. Noble probably works the best of the starting info roles. Fortune teller could be really strong. You could do soldier. They'd have to get executed, but then there'd be another. I don't know if that's good or not. I'm not sure.
I think huntsman is kind of like middling. It does tell you that there's definitely a damsel in play, right? As you're another player who can just kind of help hide who and where the damsel is. But it also might make you look like you're just a minion who's trying to find a damsel, right? So it's a middling role. It might get you an additional shot at who a damsel is, which may or may not be good. Hard to say. If you both miss, then rip. I will say a pixie who sees things like a farmer or a soldier, like at the very least, it does give good a second shot at them, because if either of those roles are being executed, they're likely being executed because they seem a little suspicious and people are thinking, that they're probably evil. Whereas, if you have that as a pixie ability, and then a demon targets you in the night, you're either hard confirming that player who just got executed and yourself, or at the very, you're stopping a kill.
I mean, the pixie is helpful. The pixie farmer creates 2 farmer chains if the farmer is killed in the night.
No. Oh, that's right. Yes, pixie actually gains it on death. Duh. Yeah. That is correct, yes. So Pixie Farmer might actually be too strong. I was thinking only about executing them and giving them a second shot at it, but Pixie would gain it in the night, and that could be rough.
2 farmer chains, yay. The other advantage of the Pixie Huntsman, kind of the same advantage that the Huntsman has, but a little bit softer, in that whereas the Pixie usually confirms 1 player by the end of the game, the Pixie Huntsman, again, confirms 2 players, because it also
is confirming 2, yeah.
So that's the other slightly hidden advantage of a Pixie Huntsman. Any other interesting characters?
I personally think that the Pixie seeing the character of the players actually the drunken of vortox game is interesting, but I might start Navian on a rant. I don't know.
Why would I rant about that? That sounds extremely clever.
No, I know, but a rant about Pixie vortox specifically.
So Alejo doesn't like Pixie vortox, and I do.
Yeah. I do not like Pixie vortox.
I still don't understand why.
Well, That's fine.
It's not really all that different, and from my opinion, as like say a dreamer, right? A dreamer gets information early on that points to it being a vortox, or it's an evil player who's bluffing, or it's a good player who's drunk or poisoned. A Pixie getting an out of play roll is more or less the same thing, and they probably won't figure it out until maybe about halfway ish through the game. Because if you don't hear the roll that you're claiming around on day one, fine, you probably get, you got a townsfolk roll. You got somebody who could be potentially powerful and might be wanting to hide it, right? So it's not all that uncommon to not hear about fortune tellers or oracles immediately. By the time you get to the point in the game where you're like, I think I've seen an out of play roll, you then have to sit and go, was I poisoned? Is it vortox? Am I the drunk? What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, as with all things, it depends on what characters are built into the script around it. But for me, the Pixie is more analogous to a washerwoman or a grandmother who sees the wrong character. And I don't think that's fun with the vortox. There's no counterplay for the evil team. There is nothing the evil team can do.
Them bluffing it.
Sure.
But bluffing is always the what's the counterplay to a dreamer who has seen rolls correctly in a non-vortox game? There isn't any. That player is just the dreamer. What's the counter to a dreamer in the vortox saying, yeah, I think it's vortox because I got wrong information? You're evil and you're bluffing that.
I mean, the counter to a dreamer is that the dreamer is quite likely to see evil players as what they're claiming and has more. And if they pick a good player and get bad information a couple of times, they could have picked evil players. Whereas the Pixie, if nobody is claiming what the Pixie has seen, then suddenly that Pixie is there's no way for the Pixie to have quote unquote not seen only evil players. They must see a good player. And yes, an evil player can bluff the character that the Pixie's seen. If it's a demon bluff, that would require the Pixie to have seen a demon bluff. But let's just and if they haven't, then there's no counterplay at all, because otherwise they've just got a player who is claiming to be a character, which is what you would expect a player to do anyway. But let's say that they see a demon bluff and a player takes that demon bluff, and the Pixie is like, oh hey, yeah, no, cool, I'm confirming you. We're both monks. That's awesome. And then suddenly a random player dies in the night, and then the Pixie's woken. Hey, choose a player. And the Pixie's like, oh, so you mean that player I've been confirming is actually evil, and it's a vortox game, and that solves all these other things? Cool.
Or you're the drunk, or you're poisoned. But also, even if that happens, so what? It confirms it to the Pixie. Now the Pixie has to convince halfway through the game anybody else, right?
Sure, but I think that's the sort of evil.
Once again, they could also just be an evil player bluffing that, even in a vortox world. If they could correctly be bluffing that in a vortox world.
Sure, they could, but that's the sort of thing I think that 9 times out of 10 would be like, yeah, that's too weird to bluff. That's obviously true, and those things.
Oh, I disagree.
That is one of them.
I disagree.
Well, that was the rant I was speaking of.
Yeah, I think that if I'm an evil player, and especially if I have been given Pixie as a bluff as an evil player on a script that has a vortox on it, I am 100% considering, saying that I got insert bluff roll, another bluff roll here or whatever, or insert any random roll here when some random person died. If I end up claiming a roll that's in play, then great. I'm also I'm basically causing confusion about whether I was poisoned on night one or if I am just the drunk. And if I end up claiming something that's not in play at all, then great. I'm claiming that it's a vortox game when it may or may not be. Or maybe I'm just Legion and working with a fellow Legion player to bluff some weird shit. Here's the thing. We were talking about doing weird shit, especially when you're evil in games. Bluff weird shit, too.
Sure. And let's go with the example of where it happens. And Town was like, okay, yeah, that might be an evil player bluffing that. Let's say that Town is...
This is also, by the way, a great reason why, as a storyteller, you just... don't always show a Pixie the demon bluff in a vortox game. Right. Show them a completely different out of play roll.
Sure, in which case you can't show them the drunk. It's not a townsfolk.
No, show them the
in a vortox. You show them the role the drunk thinks they are.
You could do that. But yeah, let's say to what you just said. In which case, that you show them a non-demon bluff. In which case, the evil team have absolutely no counterplay to it. But let's say that you show them a demon bluff, and town is like, okay, yeah, that player is claiming something to be a little bit too weird. Let's kill them for it. I think it is absolutely reasonable and absolutely expected. If that happens early enough in the game, the Pixie will just go, yeah, no, that's fine, kill me and kill that person because I know they're evil. Then you've got one evil dead, and that is quite likely to be the demon, and even if it's not, that is a trade that favors the good team.
I mean, sure, but sometimes those things happen. Sometimes a philosopher is next to a Nodashi who gets changed out of being a Nodashi and then suddenly stops waking up, right? Weird shit happens, even in base scripts. So either Evil needs to start bluffing it more, or, like as soon as Evil successfully bluffs really fucking weird shit like that happening, it stops being something that everybody immediately just agrees, yeah, that's too weird.
That's fair, but like that is going to happen every single time there is a Pixie and a Vortox in the game together, unless the storyteller is going to show a character that the evil team have no way to bluff is not in play.
What the fuck are you talking about? Evil has no way to bluff this. They absolutely do.
They have no way to bluff that a Pixie who sees a character which is not a demon bluff, that character is actually in play. Because that Pixie is...
You work with your fellow evil.
Because that Pixie, for all intents and purposes, is going to seem like to the evil team to be that character until the townsfolk or good player that was arbitrarily assigned by the storyteller dies. That Pixie is just going to act like that player. I suppose that in the mid game, if the Pixie goes, "Hey, I think it's a Vortox," which I don't think they even will, because then they're giving away their quote unquote ability. In that situation, you can have an evil player just be like, "Hey, yeah, no, that's fine. That was me. I was pretending to not be that all along." But I don't think it's that simple. I think that looks weird, particularly if it's like.
I really disagree with you about the fact that it looks weird being a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, and I think evil needs to bluff weird things more often.
Okay, it looks suspicious.
I think it's a case for bluffing. I also actually think that this is a case for potentially going from Poisoner back to Widow, because a Widow can actually really help clear up some of those issues, right?
I agree. I can agree with that. I think, like I say, it's a question of script design in general. It depends on the character of the Pixie.
I think on this script, though, again, there's Trump, there's Poisoner.
But in general, I do not like Pixie Vortox.
And I very
Poisoner
much disagree. I think Pixie Vortox is great, and I think people should bluff weird shit more often.
Will you let me finish what I'm saying, please, Navian?
You keep cutting out. Sorry.
Poisoner and Drunk absolutely help, and this is a script where it is definitely better than it is to simply replace the Snake Charmer on S&V with the Pixie. But yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't think I'll ever be a fan, but it's certainly better here than it is on other scripts.
You might want to check your audio, because any of those times that I interrupted, you had stopped talking from my end.
Okay, it seems to be coming through fine on Discord. My bars aren't changing, so it might be my... because I know that we were talking about before we went live that I have a bit of a weird microphone on Discord. There's not really anything I can do about that.
I don't know if it's a button that you hit, because I definitely heard some clicks before you would just stop talking.
Oh, that was because I was clicking my mouse to check, see if my input volume was fine, and it says it is. So
okay, well, something else happened that caused the audio to stop.
Okay.
At least for me. I don't know about Mullibok, but for me, you just stopped talking a couple of times, which is why I started.
Fair enough. I'll watch this clip back. Someone clip that debate, and we'll see if see how it sounded coming through.
Yeah, you said you're using different microphones from Discord to the stream, so it may not have. It may be that you came all the way through on stream. I don't know. I have the stream volume turned off because I can't have it on and talk at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. From my perspective, my audio levels are what I would expect them to be for stream, but obviously you're hearing a different microphone. Anyway, that is your 5-10 minutes of entertainment, Mullibok. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen.
Mullibok, I already know the answer, but which of us do you agree with more?
I do think that drunk makes it more interesting. So I agree with Alejo that adding in drunk makes it a better puzzle. I'm perfectly fine with Pixie and vortox personally.
I mean, like, I agree that it absolutely is something that depends on some of the other stuff on the script. If it's just Pixie vortox, sure, I can agree that's a bit more questionable. But we're talking about this on a script where you have the drunk and also the poisoner, and almost every single script that I have seen Pixie vortox on also has these other reasons why a Pixie might get fucked up info on night one.
Yeah.
Or fucked up info mid-game.
Yeah, and on such scripts, I think it's okay. I let me put it this way: I wasn't going to flag it as a questionable interaction until it was brought up. I don't like it on Fear and Loathing because I don't think it has that. But that's not what we're talking about here.
I mean, it's what I'm talking about, though. Like, I agree, drunk and poisoner make it better, but I don't think that it's the worst thing in the world on Fear and Loathing.
And that's fine. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Like, I'd rather have a Pixie on SMV than, again, any BMR character.
Indeed.
But yeah, I think that concludes our bi-weekly 10-minute argument on some completely irrelevant bit of script design.
It's
philosophy.
not irrelevant. It's literally on the script.
Okay, it's tangential at best. Particularly considering that, like, I'm fine with it here.
But you distinctly hate it, and I distinctly don't.
Yeah, and that's fine. I respect that you disagree with me.
I think it's again, it's just bluff weird shit more often, evil, and suddenly these interactions won't be so difficult to counterplay. You know, again, Philo next to an Odashi, bluff it, see what happens sometimes, especially late game.
I have said all that I want to say about the Pixie and the vortox, unless it becomes relevant to a later discussion.
All right, then what will we talk about next?
That is an excellent question. We were talking about Pixie. What other characters will we be showing with Pixie? Farmer is too strong. Huntsman is a little bit too weak. How do you feel about the once per game characters, like the other once per game characters, like the Seamstress and the You Start Knowings?
So what I would say about Seamstress specifically, the You Start Knowings are maybe a little bit different, but there's a reason that Seamstress is once per game, right? And that's because multiple uses of a Seamstress can be extremely devastating. And I know this because I have played games where there have been multiple Seamstress abilities, and they have nearly solved the game single-handedly, and it can be quite difficult for evil to fight against.
Multiple Seamstry.
Yes.
Yeah. It is quite powerful. Is it too powerful?
No, probably not.
Okay.
It is very powerful. It is something that evil would want to kill before they get the opportunity to double use that if they could. But I think that's also true of Pixie Fortune Teller, Pixie Oracle, right?
Yeah, I think if evil hears two people claiming Seamstress and one of them is like, "Hey guys, let's kill me right away," then they can pay attention to the second one and say, "Maybe you don't get good info."
I think one of
I will say I agree with that. A lot of times, who is the Pixie in this pair is a little bit obvious.
Yeah. I think one of the worst games I ever played coincidentally happened to have a Pixie Seamstress. I think you were in the game, Navian. I was the evil twin in that game, and Jams was the good twin. I can't remember what you were. I think you were at like 10 o'clock in the Grim. I was about 6 o'clock.
Well, you were evil, so I must have been good, right?
You were good. You were definitely good. And yeah, the game was decided the game basically came down to whether Ben, who was storytelling the game, wanted to give, I think it was Chiz, another seamstress ability after Nikki was executed, the starting seamstress, because if he didn't, it was a straight 50-50. So yeah, seamstress would have completely solved that game. In the end, he decided not to, because like you said, Mullibok, it can be it can quite often be pretty clear who the Pixie is, and if that is the case, then they're probably not Pixieing properly.
I think Ben decided not to give the Pixie the ability, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, because it was a little too obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some Pixies will like just go after the thing they say and say, this person's in a double claim. We need to kill both of us, but kill them first or whatever. Like, which is something that, you know, a good player would do to somebody who is like, oh, you're just a minion double claim. Some people don't want to kill somebody they know is good. So it does depend on. But I do think if you play it like that, where it's like, yeah, I'm cool, let's just vibe with it, then I do think you risk not getting your ability.
I think there is an inherent drawback to the, and you know how much I love the Serenovas and the Mutant, but I think there is an inherent drawback to all three of the release characters that contain the word mad. And that is that a player can get around it by saying, I am the empath, I am the reckless, I am the drunk, I am whatever else you want me to be. And like, because a player who is under the effects of an ability that contains that word can't do that, because then the storyteller can just go, yeah, no, that's fine. You are not adequately, quote unquote, mad enough because you have claimed to be these other things, so I'm going to execute you and not give you the ability. Whereas
I think it depends on how that storyteller, like
sure.
the meta of the group.
For sure. But like, that's why, in my opinion, I would encourage a player who has been selected by a Serenova to do exactly that. If you're ever in one of my games and you are selected by the Serenovas, and you're like, yeah, no, I'll prove I'm not selected by the Serenovas. I am this, I am this, I am this. That is you being absolutely clear that you are not selected by the Serenovas and that you are that thing. So as far as I'm concerned, that is protection against execution, not execution worthy in itself.
I think it actually is both at the same time.
And that's the problem, because the fact
that
that
is
a player,
the problem.
that is the problem that I am talking about, because the fact that a player can, by letter of the rule and by interpretation of the storyteller, which is an entirely subjective thing, be executed for doing that. And again, I agree that is absolutely how it works. That is self-defeating in itself. Self-defeating in itself. Nice English. That is completely self-defeating, completely contradictory, and means that, and is the big weakness to those three characters that I love.
I don't think it's a weakness. I think it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a something, not a bug, but I can't think of what the word
feature
for the fucking something is. A feature. There we go. It's a feature, not a bug.
I don't think it is, because like, it's not possible to be truly convincing that you are something. And the Pixie is a townsfolk, so you know.
Well, I think the thing about madness is it always involves risk, right?
Yes, to an extent. But like, if you are doing everything that you can to convince people that you are the chef, if you are the Pixie, if you are the Mutant, if you have been selected by the Serenovas, if you are doing everything that you can to convince people that you are the chef, you should not be executed for not being mad that you are the chef. Even if the thing that you are doing to convince people that you are the chef is saying, I am the mayor, I am the drunk, I am the monk. Like, that just... But obviously a player cannot know how a storyteller feels about that. They can't know how a storyteller is subjectively viewing the game. So
they can ask.
They can, but like
you can go ask for a storyteller consultation and be like, hey, so this meta of people claiming like a whole bunch of different roles to prove that they're not mad, like how would you treat that? Would you treat that as me, effectively causing like enough misinformation, or effectively trying to prove I'm not mad and therefore I am just this role that I have been saying? Like literally just ask. Like, we all know that madness is subjective. Different storytellers expect different things. I think it's well within the bounds, and more players should actually probably do this, where you ask your storyteller not only just generally how do you run madness, but how do you run this specific thing that I might consider to do as a part of my play.
Sure, but let's see that as it plays out in the moment. The empath is there being like, okay, well, I don't believe you. Claim to be something else. And then you go, hey, storyteller, can I have a consult? And then 2 minutes later you come back, yeah, I'm the monk. What you going to do about it? At that point, I think you can, like, you're not making a legitimate attempt.
Well, yeah, sure, because saying, well, I'm the monk, what are you going to do about it is very different from going, I'm the monk, I'm this, I'm that, blah, 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 I'm here. Are you sure that I'm not mad now? Great, I'm actually this.
Okay, well, my point was, like, if you at that point, like, pull the storyteller to one side and be like, hey, is that how you run it? Like, immediately after that's happened, it's pretty obvious what's happened. Like, it's pretty obvious that you have just pulled the storyteller to one side and been like, hey, is that something I could do? And like,
then maybe consider asking ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know that someone's going to ask you to claim something else, right?
No, you don't know, but you can either make a call in that moment to not push the boundaries and then ask the storyteller later for future interactions where somebody might ask you to claim something. Or if you're that concerned about it because it is something that you consider to be like a viable play that you would personally do, ask them before that ever even comes up. And then you have your answer.
Yeah.
Like, I really just think that people should be talking to their storytellers a lot more about the subjective things like madness, and people just don't, and then they suffer the consequences, and then they get upset. I mean, Talk to your storyteller.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could have ended that sentence a lot sooner. People should be talking to their storyteller more.
But yeah, absolutely. That sentence could have ended there, but specifically about madness as well, because it is probably one of the abilities in the game, especially the negative madness, right? The ones that have the consequences of a potential execution and that feeling really bad for somebody. You know, I think it's worth it to ask about Pixie as well, so you can know exactly how far you might be able to push it. You know, if somebody's accusing you of being Sarah Novus mad, but you're actually the Pixie, if you then go and make that same play and go, I'm this, that, the other thing here, are you satisfied I'm not Sarah Novus mad now? Great, can we go back to the fact that I'm X instead? You know, like, I think that there's a lot of context involved in these things, and most good storytellers will use the context to help them make the correct call. And sometimes I think you can even meta things based off of that, right? Like, if you're partway through the game and it feels like evil is probably on the back foot, but you're not sure, and then the storyteller executes you off of like a very thin, stretched reasoning that you technically, by the letter, haven't followed madness, and then they execute you off of that. Maybe that just tells you that like good is doing really well.
Yeah, that was a good game of S&P last Thursday, wasn't it?
I don't remember. That was last week.
Yeah, that was last week.
I apologize. Yeah. I do not have the memory.
But yeah, like, that's just... I think the subjectivity of madness is both its strength and its weakness. Like, it would not make sense to codify it, so I'm not calling for any changes or anything like that. But I just think there are situations where it can be and also feel rough.
I don't disagree with that. But I do think that talking to your storytellers might help mitigate some of that. It won't eliminate it completely because it's always subjective, and subjectivity will always involve disagreements and potentially bad feelings sometimes, but you can mitigate it at least.
Any thoughts to add, Mullibok? That, again, somewhat tangential discussion?
I will just add that I am personally not a fan of storytellers using madness as a balancing mechanism to a large degree. Like, if the decision was, well, I would have definitely given the Pixie this ability, but evil's screwed if I do, so I'm not going to. I don't really like that. I think that for some of these madness things, they need to be judged on their own merits to at least some degree. I think if you do have a legitimate question of, I'm really not sure that it's a fine tiebreaker, but I do think one of the things that tends to turn people off of Madness is like if it's used to keep a game going that just should be over, things like that.
I think that works.
I've been in that game before, and it sucks.
Yeah, I think that works one way, but not the other. Like, with what you were saying about the Pixie, I'm not sure if they were, but I think they probably were, but it would be more balanced if I didn't give them the ability. I agree that is not something that a storyteller should be doing, because the Pixie's ability is, to be honest, with the Pixie straight up, it's not something that you can do. But I think that with the Cerenovus and the Mutant, the might in there does allow a storyteller to balance, right? Like, if the Pixie, I think that the storyteller has a responsibility to make an honest judgment. Is that player mad? Yes, give them the ability. No, don't. With the Cerenovus and the Mutant, the storyteller makes that same judgment. Is that player mad that they are a townsfolk, that they are an outsider? If yes, if no, then they cannot be executed for any reason. If yes, is it balanced for me to execute them? If yes, do it. If no, don't. The same with the Cerenovus. Are they mad that they are the character that they've been told to? If yes, you cannot execute them based off an honest assessment of whether they were. If no, then what's the more balanced thing to do?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree that mutants shouldn't just be able to get like executed on command. Absolutely agree.
I mean, neither should Cerenovus mad players either.
Yep.
But yes, if there is a legitimate reason for the storyteller to, then they might. But
yeah.
I think that when it comes to the madness that causes executions, hang on. I had words for what I wanted to say, and I lost them.
Yeah, I'll give you a moment. But yeah, I'm just basically agreeing with you on that one, Mullibok, that the storyteller has a responsibility to follow the rules, and that is as true with the Pixie, the Cerenovus, and the Mutant as it is with the Fortune Teller. Like the storyteller can't randomly wake the Seamstress, having already woken them earlier in the game, and give them another use of their ability, or just arbitrarily decide to lie to the empath because they think to be more balanced to do so. And therefore, the storyteller should not be making dishonest calls about the Pixie just because they think it would be more balanced to do so.
Whatever I was going to say is just completely lost. It is into the void now. So, moving on.
If it comes back to you, don't hesitate to interrupt me. Yeah, do you have anything else to say about that discussion, Mullibok? Because we focused on a little part of what you said there, but if there was anything else?
No, I think I about agree. It sums it up.
Actually, new segment. Pedro Apollo says that Pixie is their favorite townsfolk. What is your favorite of the 4 character types? I'm just adding a segment into the middle of this podcast for no reason.
Okay, so what's the question?
Best of each of the 4 character types. Favorite of each of the 4 character types. Yeah, technically different. You're right.
When I am a townsfolk, I like powerful one-shot abilities that I don't have to survive a long time for. So I really love Chef. I love Artist the most on S&V, because that can also just be what I'm in the mood for that day, as opposed to, the Clockmaker always is what it is. But Chef allows, or like Artist allows you that flexibility while still being able to get your info when you want it on demand. So one of those for townsfolk. For outsider, I really love the Recluse, and I think, I don't know, like
Recluse gang
soaking up evil pings on you, and you either knowing what that means or trying to figure out what it means. Like, oh, the seamstress got a yes. What does that mean? What's the storyteller trying to do here? I think that is one of the more fun things to do there. For minions, I really like Spy and Widow. I really like being able to just like craft a game plan around what's going on and just having knowledge. And I also really enjoy having people BSB a private convos and just know exactly what's going on and knowing their motivation and just being able to laugh about it. I enjoy that a lot. And for demons, I like escape hatch demons. As Navian might know, sometimes you need escape hatch demons when things go really wrong. So I like the Imp of the Fake Goo.
Vivian, I think I know yours. I think it is Ravenkeeper, Recluse, Poisoner, Fangu.
If you tie Ravenkeeper with Fortune Teller.
Okay.
Recluse, Poisoner, and... Hang on, let me look at a list of demons. Fangu is absolutely up there.
Mullibok,
I'm a big fan of Vigor Mortis as well, though.
Mullibok, what do you think mine are?
I also love Nodashi. I love Poison.
Mutant Ceranovus are free? Question mark.
Ceranovus is close, but yeah, it's probably number one.
Okay. I feel like I heard your favorite demon at some point, but I definitely do not remember.
It's not Leech. I'm pretty sure you don't
correct,
like
it's
Leech
not
right
Leech.
away, huh?
Leech is my least favorite demon.
Yeah. I love Leech. It's very swingy, but it's fantastic.
Is it Vigor Mortis?
It's not Vigor Mortis. I do like the Vigor Mortis, but it's not my favorite.
Okay.
I think it's Imp.
It's not the Imp. It is another somewhat maligned one that a lot of people like. Oh, I don't really like that.
Oh, is it Zumble?
It's not Zumble.
Okay, good. Is it Lil Monster?
Not Lil Monster. God, it's not Lil Monster. My second least favorite. It's like three demons left. You got this.
Is it Al Hadikia? That's
it's not Al Hadikia.
Like.
Is it Riot?
It's not Riot.
There aren't that many left. Is it Puka?
Yeah, it's Puka.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I don't think Puka is all that maligned. It's just recognized as being incredibly fucky.
It's a little bit maligned.
Only for people who don't understand that the fuckiness is also a feature, not a bug.
Definitely. Although some of it did get ironed out about a year ago. It was definitely weirder before it got ironed out. If you weren't around back then, chat, its ability used to be the previously chosen player dies, then becomes healthy, instead of the previously poisoned player, and that was a very different ability that created so many problems.
Yeah, you just have goons dropping dead more, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know what your favorite townsfolk would be. There's just so many more options.
I forgot that we didn't figure that one out. Have a guess.
I'm gonna guess it's a BMR townsfolk.
It's not a BMR townsfolk. Nathan, do you know it? Without saying what it is, do you know it?
You have probably told me at some point, but my memory has not kept that one. So no.
Do you want to take a guess?
Alchemist?
No, it is an experimental character. What do you think, chat? Flash, you two.
I don't think it's Pixie. We all know that you love Madness, but I think you love the induced madness of Mutant and Ceranovus rather than Pixie's style of madness.
Yeah, you're right. I don't hate the Pixie. My least favorite townsfolk is also an experimental townsfolk. By experimental, I am including Kickstarter in that.
Are you one of these people who likes the Amnesiac the most?
I'm not. I do like the Amnesiac a lot, but I prefer its viewing equivalent, the Forgetful.
I love bluffing Amnesiac.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the General.
Nope. If the General were a game, and I were the storyteller, I would give you a thumbs firmly sideways at the General.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Is it Poppy Grower?
Yeah, there we go. That's a bingo. I love Poppy Grower so much. I love playing as the Poppy Grower. I love playing as good in a Poppy Grower game. I love playing as evil in a Poppy Grower game, and I love storytelling Poppy Grower games.
I will say Poppy Grower Puka sad combo.
It is, and that is very unfortunate because they are my favorite demon and my favorite townsfolk, and they can never coexist happily in the same script together.
No.
Indeed. I mean, technically, I guess you could like house rule around it, but
Yeah,
I house rule around vortox poppy grower interaction because I hate it that much.
I get that. I don't, because I think there are workarounds, but I get that. I get your argument that if you're working around it, then why not just get rid of it?
Yeah, basically. If I'm like making a bunch of loopholes to make sure that the evil team still learns each other somehow correctly, even though it's not actually accurate, like I might as well just house rule it.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. So yeah, that was our new segment, guessing each other's favorite characters. Now back to your regularly scheduled script notes.
To be fair, we're really only going to be able to do that with the guests from now on.
Yeah, that's true. Although I don't know, I think you could probably have a guess at mine.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Okay, anyway, yes. I think we've probably spent enough time on the Pixie now. Although, we did. I don't think you actually answered the question, how you feel about Pixie being the top 3 characters. Jeff.
I think the noble is pretty interesting. There was a game on CT where there were 3 noble pings in one game. That made me so happy. It's just
Noble
the kind
Ping.
of information I really like. It was so good.
There was a game on missing pieces that Skills and I co-story told, and we had a Pixie, a Pixie noble, so a noble, a Pixie noble, and then a cannibal noble. And so on the Pixie gets them, or sorry, the noble gets themselves executed on day 1, and so by night 2 we have nine noble pings.
Amazing. I on the chef. I played in a game, and this is relevant to this script. It wasn't the script, but it is relevant to this script. I played in a game where the chef was executed. The chef got a 0 and was executed on the first day. And then the cannibal woke up and learned to 2, because earlier in the night, the Fangu had jumped to an outsider between the minions.
Nice.
That is fantastic.
Yep.
So I think it would probably be worth playing along with Chef and Librarian for that sort of reason. Like, if it's a base 0 and you're a Pixie Librarian and the first librarian got a drunk pig and you get a Librarian 0, that would be very funny. And very bad for the evil team who probably fake jump to the drunk.
Ooh,
But
yeah, well, you have 3 candidates for who that drunk is, right?
Well, you don't. You know, it's not the librarian, right? You're the Pixie Saw librarian.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the librarian would have had to have died in order for you to get that ability. So, yep, yeah. There's only 2 candidates.
I think on those, I think playing along, but being happy to just play Washerwoman when things come out is probably how I would approach that.
That's such a fun thing to give to a poisoned Pixie, though, right? I'm totally going to do that sometime.
That would be so fun.
You can do it with the librarian. Show the librarian the recluse, and then show the Pixie the librarian, and then show the Pixie a 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to say, oh no, is this just a recluse registering, or did it has a Fangu jumped to this?
Yep.
Was the librarian poisoned and actually we're in a Vigor Mortis game?
Ideally in a base 1 outsider game. So that you got all 3 of those options. You got Vigor or Legion reducing it. You don't have the Vortox. It can't be the Vortox because the Pixie's got correct info. The Vigor or Legion reducing it. The Fangu increasing it, which means that it's gone to another outsider that isn't the recluse. And then no, you need like an imp or something so that you can just have the. I suppose Legion also works. I think just have the basic.
I think Vortox Pixie seeing the drunk librarian and then getting a librarian 0 when they get their ability, that still works on Vortox, right? If the librarian's the drunk specifically.
Yeah, that does work. In which case you don't need to have You don't need to have a Recluse in play, but you can.
You still could.
Or yeah, you've got the Legion case where the Recluse has simply stopped registering as an outsider.
Oh, that'd be rough for them.
Yeah. But yeah, you've got options there.
Yeah, if your three good players are the Librarian who saw a Recluse, the Pixie saw a Librarian, but then the Pixie sees that the Recluse doesn't exist anymore, that'd be fun, because then there's only 2 alive good players because the Librarian's dead.
I suddenly want to build a script around that.
Do it.
Maybe I will. So that is the Pixie seeing the Noble and the Chef. The Librarian and the Noble, and also the Chef we talked about briefly, although with reference to the cannibal rather than the Pixie necessarily, but same thing.
Same thing.
Basically the same.
Yeah.
Gambling points out in game chat that a drunk librarian and a vortox can see real info, and then the Pixie librarian can't, which is technically true of any Pixie who has seen the token that the drunk thinks. And I mean, they are the drunk version can get real info, and then the Pixie can't when they gain that ability.
Yep.
Which is definitely interesting with those, start knowing or once per game abilities for sure.
Yeah, the drunk librarian can confirm a Recluse, and the Pixie can confirm a librarian. It's all just vortox. That does work.
Yeah, so I think that half an hour is definitely long enough to spend on the Pixie. 40 minutes. Gambling also raises another point, which is that Evil Twin and Boom Dandy can be. I have spoken before that I like the Boom Dandy. It's my other candidate for favorite minion, along with the Serenovus, and I like the Goblin.
Goblin's my other candidate for favorite.
I used to dislike the Goblin, and I still do from an academic purist clock tower perspective. But in practice, it's just so much fun, and we can't ignore that. But I don't like them being on the same script together, because you can get situations where the good team just can't kill evil players. It's not as bad if it's not like a little monster game. They can combine quite badly there. But you kind of have the same thing with the Evil Twin, because it can be pretty hard to execute a player if you think that the Boom Dandy. It can be pretty hard to execute a player if you think they might be the good twin and it might cost you the game. So you can get into late game situations there where the good team have a lot of information, but their information can cost them big if they're just a little bit wrong about it. And that provides an interesting tension, right? But it's...
I think there is a flip side to it, too, where a Boom Dandy could actually solve your Evil Twin problem, maybe. Unless,
absolutely.
I guess the Storyteller could just leave the twins and one other person alive if they want to, make that the choice. If they don't want the good team to win.
Well, you would have to kill the demon in that scenario.
Yeah,
but then I guess the good team would also have to solve that the last player is not the demon.
Well,
so
actually, no.
Maybe, I don't know. That's rough.
No,
I feel like if I'm in a Boom Dandy situation and I see the twins are alive, I'm making the assumption that the Storyteller has killed the demon here. Otherwise, they have not ran that in a
because
fair
the game's
way.
literally just over if they didn't.
That doesn't work though, because if you leave the twins alive and the demon alive, and the game's over and the evil team has won. But if you leave the twins alive without leaving the demon alive, then the good team can kill either twin and win the game.
Oh, that's right, because it's not an execution.
Oh, that's true.
So no, you can't leave the evil twins alive.
So I would say you either would have to house rule that interaction that if you pointed the good twin on a Boom Dandy, then you would good team loses, or you just kill both twins.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hate that as a house rule though.
So, but if you got the feeling that somebody's a Boom Dandy, then I don't know. If you're running it that the twins need to die because of that, that's a way to solve your twin problem. You better know what you're doing on the final 3, though.
I mean, one thing that you could do, interestingly, is if you are a Boom Dandy and you get with your other minion and you fake twins, right? And you try to make yourself look like the evil one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fun thing to do. It especially leads to town thinking that like one of these other minions is definitely not in play, right? They're going to think it's twins, and if they have evidence of a Serenovus, they'll think it's twin Serenovus, or they might think that it's twin Poisoner when actually it's a Boom Dandy with either one of these. And I think that can actually be like potentially more confusing.
Maybe. I mean, the Boom Dandy is at its most powerful the earlier it goes off, because like
That's fair.
You've got less time for the good team to gather information. Whereas late game, if you think a player is the Boom Dandy and you're on Final Four, just execute them.
Right.
Execute them in Final Four. Nobody dies, and you have a shot to kill someone. You get 2 kills on final day, and maybe they were the demon pretending to be a Boom Dandy. But the earlier and the later you get into the game, the more that kind of comes into play. But early in the game, Boom Dandy can be devastating. And I think that bluffing an evil twin as the Boom Dandy just kind of throws your ability in the bin for a large part.
I can mostly agree with that. I would say that the one thing that it might afford you is, one, you can have a demon who decides to start sinking kills to make it look like a demon is dead. 2, there is the potential that people are going to be building the worlds based off of the fact that they have twins, right? If you successfully manage to bluff this, then people are spending their entire game building worlds where one of you is good and one of you is evil. Unless maybe somebody gets the feeling like, I kind of think they might both be evil, or there might be information that points towards that. But for the most part, most people will be building worlds where one is good and one is evil, and then a Boom Dandy goes off, and you have 60 seconds to completely revise everything that you might have been thinking this entire game, right?
Yeah, then it kind of comes down to a question of, okay, is the Boom Dandy's pair the demon, or are they the minion, right? That becomes this question that you have to answer at that point. Yeah, but the good team also do have characters that can solve that question, right? They've got the fortune teller, in particular. Yeah. I just feel like I would rather be the Poisoner and the Serenovus out of these minions faking a twin pair.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, of course, but I think there's some limited viability for a Boom Dandy.
Yeah.
I would like to see it happen at least once, just to, sometimes things sound like, in theory, this sounds a certain way, but actually it's either better than expected or worse than expected.
Sometimes people just have to be weird.
I mean, if you want to be bold and go for it, you can bluff doing something mechanically incorrectly. Like, oh yeah, I'm the evil twin seamstress, and I checked myself another player. Oh, that's not how it works. Oh well, shit. I guess I'm just the evil twin.
I think that depends on who you are. I think that's more believable out of certain people, and in certain levels of experience in Clock Tower, people are just going to immediately call that out as this is clearly you're evil in some fashion, trying to fumbling your bluff on purpose. Is this, with a Boom Dandy on the script, is this what I want to execute? Yeah. And then you can go another layer of, maybe it is what I want to execute, but it's somebody trying to bluff that they're a Boom Dandy.
Absolutely. And that's the sort of layered bluff that's you basically just that I absolutely love. I do that as good all the time, right? That's what me waking up on day one and saying I'm the sage is, right? Just the other way around.
Yeah.
No, that's I did recently in a game of SMV decide just, sod it, I'm claiming to be a twin. Doesn't matter if I'm the Vortox, I'm a twin now. Without even saying who my twin was, I just woke up on day one and said, "Hi everyone, I'm the artist, I'm the good twin. What you gonna do about it?" Who's your evil twin? Not important. If they want to out, they can.
Yeah, and
then hilariously someone did.
Yeah. There's viable reasons as a good player to play it like that too. Most of them are social. Mechanically, that's maybe not optimal for your team to do it that way. But socially, which is what some people care more about, if it allows somebody else to have more fun and be more included in the game, then good.
Yeah, and then one player was absolutely not having it and nominated me, and then died to the witch curse in a 1 minion game. So okay, so you're not the twin. Yeah, I'm not the twin. What are you gonna do about it? That was a game. No, I claim to be the Twin Sage, because of course I did. And then you just had, who was it? I remember who it was. I think it was Tim from my Angels group, just being like, yeah, no, don't worry about it. It's just a Leo being a Leo. Like, I am in fact the demon. Yeah, sweet. What else have we got to talk about? Let's chat about our info gathering characters. We touched on the Oracle earlier, but let's talk about that one again. Oracles getting numbers are a pretty clear sign pointing towards or away from Legion slash vortox, right? Like the Fango and the Vigor are still going to die in the night and create dead evils, but exceptionally high dead counts are going to point you away from that direction, I think.
That's true. You probably know by night 2 if you're the Oracle that you're either specifically the drunk or you're not in a Legion game or in a Vortox game where the storyteller's trying to feed you that world in particular.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, I think that it's quite easy on the script for the Oracle to think that they're in a Legion game if they're not. But it's quite hard for the Oracle to think that they are in a Legion game that they aren't in a Legion game when they that they aren't in a Legion game when they are. But obviously, if the Oracle thinks that they aren't in a Legion game and are, and aren't, then so if it's a Fangu or a Vigor Mortis game, it's going to be pretty obvious to the Oracle that it's a Fangu or a Vigor Mortis game. However, that doesn't necessarily translate to town believing that Oracle, and I think that this is a case where the Oracle being a viable bluff doesn't really work for the evil team, because the Oracle isn't saying either me or them are evil. They're saying either I'm evil or it's not a Legion game. And considering that most players are evil in a Legion game, that is a fairly even odds.
Right. You would probably expect somebody to latch onto an Oracle bluff in a Legion game.
Right.
A lot of the time.
So I think the Oracle can know themselves what demon type it is, but the presence of Legion causes Oracle to not be trusted.
I mean, I think that's true of every role that has information, right? It's always a question of, do I trust this player and do I trust the information that they're putting out, or do I think that they're evil and I don't?
Yeah, of course. The Empath and the Fortune Teller. Also good Legion detectors / vortox detectors. Kind of much the same discussion, really. We just haven't spoken about them yet. I think that they are also well covered by the script in general, right? So, the Empath. Let's just take the Empath for an example. Empath is so powerful in most scripts it's on, because it's often not paired with the Recluse or the Spy or the Drunk. So it's just knows to a reasonable degree of certainty, unless the evil team are getting very lucky and just poisoning the right person, that exactly 0, 1, or 2 of their neighbors are evil. No asterisks, no caveats. That's not the case here. So we've got the Poisoner, obviously, but we've also got the Drunk and the Recluse to give it a little bit of typically upwards misinformation, and the Vortox to give it whatever misinformation it needs, and the Legion, and also the Vigor Mortis to kind of cover for that. The Empath isn't going to be surprised necessarily when its evil neighbors die in the night, but I do think that the Empath is going to be quite strong at solving for Evil Twin, particularly given some of the other characters that might be in the game. If they can figure out whether or not it's a Vortox or whether or not it's Legion. However, if the Empath, another minion the Empath does play quite nicely with is the Boom Dandy, because the Empath is going to be like, okay, that player's evil. Everyone's going to be like, yeah, I completely believe you that player is evil. Let's execute them. Wait, what? No, absolutely not.
Yeah, they could be stuck getting no new information if they believe that they're just next to the boom dandy. They're kind of just
Yeah.
hanging out at that point.
But I mean, that's always the case when you think that somebody could be evil on a boom dandy script, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's always a question of, well, I'm pretty sure they're evil, but which one?
Right, but in the case of the empath and the seamstress, also in the script, as opposed to the fortune teller, they're only getting information about alignment, not character type. So the
Right.
fortune teller can kind of cross-reference that, but only if they're both in play.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say about our 3 information gathering characters before we take questions or gambling's questions from chat? I see you
I would
gambling.
say that, I mean, there's a reason people say empaths aren't real. It's because you can adjust your game if you see that one's going to be next to the evil twin. Like, they could become the twin pair.
Right.
They can, like, as usual, they could become the drunk, and so they're going to have a lot of like, if they get fast information on one of the twins being evil, I don't know. I personally, if I had that token, I would be like, well, let's think about this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's worth pointing out too, is that, like, if you had a plan for who you thought the twin was going to be, and then you deal out the tokens and you see where the empath is sat, you might want to switch it up. Maybe suddenly the empath is the twin. That's fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. The storyteller, I suppose the twins shouldn't be too much of a problem if the storyteller is careful, because they can just, like, not put one of the twins next to the not put the good twin next to the empath.
Yeah. Or either twin.
Or if they can't.
But especially the good twin.
They can't not put the evil twin next to the empath.
That's true. But, like, you can either make the empath
make
the twin, or you can put the player on the other side of the empath, mark them as a twin,
right.
And then, okay, the empath knows that they're not in a vortox game, I guess, but...
Or colluding together.
Yeah, but, like, then it still always comes back to the same question of, sure, the empath knows that it's not a vortox game, but what if they're also just evil?
Or the drunk.
Or the drunk.
Or both of the other 2 players who are claiming twins are evil, and
right, and it is a
getting
vortox.
false info.
So, yeah.
So many options. We'll take gambling's question now, unless we have anything else to add to empath, fortune teller, oracle.
Nope.
We've not really spoken about the fortune teller. How do you like to run fortune teller in vortox, Mullibok? People know how Navian and I run it, but how do you like to run it?
Yeah, I mean, I've read what Evan says, where the the information of the red herring is false, so you can't reverse it because it's false, and if you reverse it, it's true, therefore that's wrong. I just think that's really unnecessary. You don't have to do a vortox dirty like that. I think I would say, I appreciate that's how the rules work, but I'm reversing the red herring information. You can't stop me.
Yep.
It's true, people cannot stop you. Yeah, I would agree with that. So the fortune teller is, I suppose, quite a good character to divide the demon possibilities in exactly 2. Getting mostly the yeses, look at these 2. Getting mostly nos, look at these 2.
But there is a recluse in there and a red herring that can potentially mess people up if you just happen to get unlucky with your hits.
Yeah, like if you get 2 nights of info, you get 2 yeses and then you die. Like if you get executed or whatever, it's like, well, I don't actually know.
Yeah, it's like, I've either hit the demon and the red herring, or it's vortox, or it's legion, or a recluse is in there, and that sucks.
Depends on the size of your game to a degree. Like if it's a 9-player game, then you're probably and you get 2 yeses, then that probably makes it more likely to be not a vortox or legion, to be honest, or at least not a vortox game, to be honest. Whereas if you're playing a 13-player game, and you know that there's probably no recluse, you know that there's only 2 out of the other 12 players are going to register as a demon, and you get back-to-back yeses, then you're relatively confident that it is a vortox or a legion game, I'd say.
Yeah, if I'm really worried about legion and I keep being alive and I want to test it, I might. It's so hard because I'd be tempted to test myself against the first player who died at night, but they could still be the Fangu, so it's not even 100% there.
Yeah. Or you could be your own red herring.
Absolutely.
We love storytelling. Yeah, so I do like Fortune Teller on this script a lot. Is my takeaway from that. Oracle was talking about. So yeah, let's take Ed's question. How do you feel about killing nobody with the Legion on this script?
Because there's monk and soldier.
Yeah.
I think doing that when there is one of those townsfolk in play, it's interesting because I feel like the heat always turns up on monks and soldiers when there's no death, because all of a sudden they have this spotlight on them where it's like, oh, you did something, you're suspicious now because we're noticing you. So I think how I would be tempted to do as a storyteller is I would say, okay, I'm going to kill this person and then ask the monk for their pick, and if they hit, it's like, all right, you win.
Yeah,
no death.
I like to do that sometimes.
I think a soldier, you can like quote unquote hit a soldier. I think like that's part of what it's there for. And I do think that if Legion is bluffing it, definitely in the arsenal. Definitely just kill no one.
I was just going to say, like, I think gambling might have meant more along the lines of if Legion is bluffing one of these roles, as opposed to you put one of these in play along with Legion.
Absolutely. Well, I'm absolutely very happy to do that if both monk and soldier are on.
I do think there's a case to be made for attacking the soldier in a Legion game, just because, like, if you don't do that, then the soldier kind of doesn't have an ability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although it does mean that if the storyteller thinks that they're, like, reasonably well confirmed, then they can't kill them, even if they really want to, which is also good for the good team. So,
to be fair, that happens with a lot of roles in Legion games.
True.
Like, either somebody, like one of the other good players somehow has information that clears that player and they believe it, or just socially, the good players just hard trust each other for whatever reason. Well, socially, that's the reason. But, like, sometimes that happens, and you just, as a storyteller, really can't do a whole lot about it. Like, the players in a Legion game really have to be the ones who are hard driving that and hard splitting town apart, because as a storyteller, what you can do with really trusted good players is very limited.
I suppose we should probably talk about the monk, because whenever a monk is on a script, Nathan, you and I really want to talk about it, because of course we do. So let's talk about the first two demons first. So let's talk about the monk and the Fangu. Monk gets two chances to prevent a Fangu jump. How do you feel about that?
That's honestly my least favorite part. I feel like it's kind of rude to a Fangu if they're protected so they don't get to jump. It's very sad for them.
I mean, a monk can do it to an imp, though, to some degree. You can either protect a player that I mean, you can protect a player that the imp has chosen, or you can try to find an imp to prevent a star pass.
That is true. I mean, I guess it's like its own form of misinformation, because it's like, oh, hey, guys, I was... I mean, maybe not even the recluse, but if the damsel died immediately, they'd be happy. They might say, oh, I was the damsel, so get wrecked, minions, and also it's not a Fangu game because I died night 2, and maybe that gives a Fangu another chance to jump and hide things.
Yeah,
and let like a recluse just openly claim. So maybe it's still okay.
That's always interesting when an outsider dies first.
Yeah, you might get some really weird feelings from people if it is a base 0 game and then the outsider just dies.
Yeah, considering there's no other way for that to happen here.
Yeah.
At that point, the monk knows who the demon is if they trust the outsider.
Yes, which is really unfortunate, but also such a niche scenario that, like, technically it will probably happen in enough playthroughs, but I don't think it's so much of a problem that it's, like, worth taking that interaction out.
As for your comparison to the imp, Nathan, I get the point, but I would counter that by saying that a Fangu is more likely to jump. Well, it's more likely to jump, but also it's more likely to jump at a seemingly random point in the game, whereas an imp is more likely to be protected with the intention of preventing them from jumping, because 9 times out of 10, an imp is star passing because they feel pressured, and a monk knows
Yeah.
who feels pressured, so might protect them intentionally, preventing that, whereas they're less likely to do that with a Fangu.
But actually, I think that's more helpful for the Fangu, right? If you know, the monk isn't specifically trying to protect. I mean, they could think that, like, I think this player is evil. They might be a demon. They might be a Fangu. If I protect them, and then, you know, an outsider just dies in the night, and then is coming out as an outsider and says, "Okay, guys, either a Fangu who's jumped already, or it's not a Fangu." Then you can still get that same lead that you, as a monk trying to prevent the Star Pass, might. That, oh, maybe this player is actually demon here. But I also think that it might be more helpful for the monk, again, except in the case where it's a base 0, which is a lot less, like, you can't really wriggle out of that one so much, other than specifically painting the monk as an evil player, which maybe you have been trying to set up to do since the beginning. I don't know, but you know, if a Fangu is trying to jump in the middle of the game, and then they don't, like, ultimately, I think that causes more confusion for the good team than in Imp being prevented from being star passed.
Pedro Paulo, Legion and Vigo killed Minion, can bluff to be an outsider when dead to frame the monk protected player. That's true. And I think
it's also true, yeah.
That is particularly viable if the monk has protected a good player in a Legion game, because if that happens in a Vig game, then, or even I suppose a Fangu could probably get away with it. But either way, if that happens in another game, and then you execute that player and they die and the game continues, then there is pretty much no explanation for that other than the outsider was lying, the monk was lying. And you kind of need the outsider to be lying for the monk to be lying, so you are basically saying... So you're basically making a gambit there of saying that player, killing that player, is worth me outing as evil.
Sounds like a great reason for Serenovas to madlock somebody who dies as an outsider.
That's true. And that could be very interesting for sure. We'll take Gamling's final point before Gamling... Well, I think he's already gone to bed, but we'll take his final point that we didn't raise, unless I missed something, which is... And I think, Nadine, you'll know the answer to my opinion on this, but the outsider manipulation on this script is the Fangu, the Vigor Mortis, the Legion, and the Huntsman. Thoughts, basically. Mullibok, do you think that's about the level that you want? Do you think that's a little too much? Do you think that's a little too little?
I personally like what the base scripts do with outsider modification, where on TB it's specifically the Baron, on BMR it's specifically the Godfather, and on S&V it's one demon makes it go one way, one demon makes it go the other way, and that's part of your solve. I think, I mean, I would honestly also throw the drunk in there as soft outsider manipulation, because it can be hard to figure out where that is, and then, like, that's the edge that the Baron gets in TB, is that the drunk helps obscure whether you're actually facing Baron as a minion or not, and it's going to do the same thing with these demons, to not, like, people aren't just going to be able to claim and solve off of that. So that's, like, it's extra manipulation to the players. Like, I guess it's more obfuscation than manipulation, but it's like obfuscation to the solve. And I think that with the drunk added in, I do think that is a pretty good amount of uncertainty, and you can't trust any specific outsider claim.
Yeah. I don't really have much to add to that. I think that the base scripts have an outsider manipulation window of 2. All of them. Like, there's never a way in a base script for you to have more than one character that modifies the outsider count, unless you count the drunk, which I don't, but I get why you do. In setup, at least. Obviously, you can have the Vigor Mortis and the Fangu both in play in SMV, but not at the start of the game. So yeah, I think, and again, Fangu, Vigor, and Legion can't all be in play at the same time, so the only way you can have two characters modifying that is the Huntsman, which isn't really there for that purpose.
Yeah, the more and more I'm coming
ahead,
around to the idea that the Huntsman, if the Damsel isn't already in play and you have say 2 other outsiders in play, a Huntsman probably shouldn't actually add a Damsel in. It should just modify one of those outsiders to be the Damsel. Otherwise it really is becoming a significantly worse townsfolk than it is.
Yeah. I think that is probably best done for cases where there would otherwise not be an outsider.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm okay with it on base 0 where it could maybe it's a Huntsman, maybe it's the Fangu. I agree that if you already have 2 outsiders in, then using the Huntsman to push it to another is not great.
Yeah, I don't want to spend long on this, but I do want to touch on it. And I really don't want to get drawn into another 20-minute discussion on this one, maybe. Is the base 0 count, Vigor Mortis, Huntsman. The Vigor Mortis has to take away an outsider, which the Huntsman then has to add back. So usually that is a net of plus or minus 0. But that then becomes impossible because you then either have to add the Huntsman and then take it away with the Vigor Mortis, in which case the Huntsman... Sorry, add the Damsel and then take it away with the Vigor Mortis, in which case the Damsel's ability is unsatisfied. Or add the... or take one away from 0, getting you to, well, minus, quote-unquote, -1. And then add one back with the Huntsman, getting you magically all the way up to 1. So in either case, one of those two is kind of going to be upset in terms of the square brackets. Navy, I know that you believe that is not ideal, but fine. Is that fair to say? That you would have the Damsel in play?
Yeah, I think that I understand that viewpoint, but I think that they're not really in that bad of a conflict, and I think it's fine to say that the Vigor Mortis's ability was satisfied, and then the Huntsman's wasn't. So then the Huntsman forced the Damsel into play.
How do you feel about it, Mullibok?
I think I would my rule of thumb would be that a specific character forcing, like the Huntsman forcing specifically the Damsel in, it just feels like it takes precedent to me over the -1 outsider. I don't think I would ever run Vigor Balloonist as adding one in a base 0, but I do think I would always add, I don't think I'd ever have a Huntsman with no Damsel because the Vigor is taken away.
So
that doesn't make sense to me.
The way that I think of it is that you have the general outsider count, which does get done all together, right? With regards to the Vigor Balloonist would cancel each other out. A Vigor, a Godfather can cancel each other out because those are both just very generic plus or minus 2 outsiders. Whereas when you have a character that's calling for a specific other character to be in play, even if that character happens to be an outsider, it's technically taking place outside of the outsider manipulation aspect, right? So the general outsider manipulation happens, that's resolved in and of itself and on its own. And then you're looking at the very specific, this character must be in play. And that's why, to me, they're not in conflict.
I think then you are running the outside account specifically before the Huntsman.
Yeah, so that would be running specifically all of the specific or the general sort of plus or minus outsiders, resolve that, then look at what specifically needs to be in play for any characters say, a Huntsman or a Choir Boy.
Yeah.
Are these characters in? If no, they must be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it is the only reasonable way to set up a game. I don't think it's in any way reasonable to run a game with a Huntsman in it without a Damsel. but I do think that it is a conflict. Just because I don't think that the Vigor Mortis' setup ability has been enacted, but I think it's a necessary evil to take. So, bottom line,
which just means that you just don't run Vigor with Huntsman, right?
I suppose
in specifically a base 0.
Yeah,
I suppose
choose to not.
That's the other side of it. But then I don't like the Damsel knowing that there's not a Vigor, or at least the players knowing that the Damsel and the Vigor can't be in play because they're not hard jinx and there's no reason to hard jinx them. But I don't know. I can see both arguments there. But like I said, I don't really want to spend too long on it, so I will give you the last word if you want to say anything to contradict what I've just said there, either of you.
No, I agree.
Not really. I mean, yeah, like I absolutely see both reasonings. Like, I don't think that your reasoning is bad or faulty by any means. It's absolutely a correct way to interpret it, and that does put you in conflict. So, I think it's something that a storyteller is just going to have to make a call on. Either they're not going to run these together in a base 0, or and the players can correctly meta that. Oh well, these are things that can be bluffed, I guess, right? So, or you're happy to explain that you ran general outsider modification by itself and then specific character additions afterwards, and then people know that it can be in play. Like, you're just gonna have to pick one, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk briefly about. I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on this, Mullibok. We've got the farmer, the soldier, and the mayor, and we touched on this earlier. Oh yeah, sorry, that was the other thing I wanted to say in regards to the monk. Actually, there's an interesting thing you can do with the monk in a Legion game, which is to find the most suspicious Legion player,
protect them,
convince town to not execute them for the entire game, and just keep picking them at night.
I think that if you can manage to set yourself up to be a good player that the storyteller absolutely has to keep alive, like if you, let's say there's 3 good players, and so you engineer on day 1 to have one of the good players executed, and then the storyteller just can't kill you in the night without just ending the game. If you can engineer that, go for it. Otherwise, I think a storyteller would be when they get to the point where they're like, I can kill a good player here, and I should kill a good player here, and they just kill you. Yeah,
definitely. The biggest downside of that plan is that, by God, will that feel horrible for that Legion? That Legionnaire.
Yeah. Which is why I think a storyteller will kill you potentially even earlier in the game than you might have expected, if they catch on that that is exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, if they know that that's your plan, just make you the one good player who's dying this game.
Yeah.
And can't afford anymore after that.
I do also think that, in order for you to make this plan work, you're probably going to have to be a little bit loud about it and somewhat public because you have to convince the other good players to specifically not vote for this super suspicious player, right?
Yeah.
And good luck doing that quietly.
Yeah. I suppose you could go, no, it's definitely not a Legion game. They're definitely the Boom Dandy. Let's just leave it, guys.
I'm not sure you'd fool the storyteller, but you could try.
Well, if you start mug protecting them, I think the storyteller might be on to you.
Yeah.
I'm mug protecting the Boom Dandy. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's a Vigor game. It's clearly a Vigor game. I don't want the chef to be poisoned on night 3. What are you talking about?
I don't want the Vigor to kill the Boom Dandy, the definite minion on here that a Vigor won't really want to kill most of the time.
Yeah, and I don't want to poison the chef.
It is funny, though.
It is quite funny to think about. Hey everyone, that guy's definitely the Boom Dandy. Everyone go to sleep. I protect the Boom Dandy. So yeah, that is something that you can do, but storytellers, you have the tools to deal with that.
Yeah, I feel like by the time that good can assemble enough trust within themselves to execute that plan, the storyteller can catch on to it most of the time.
Yeah.
Let's chat briefly about the seamstress, because I don't really have a whole lot to say. I feel like it does a job. It's good for finding Legion. It's good for finding twins, and it's disrupted by the vortox. and potentially a couple of other things. I think it's a solid information gathering character, but unless there's something I'm missing, there's no like particularly wow spectacular interactions with it. Obviously, there's the recluse that's always fun with alignment detectors, but is there any particular reason you got it on here, Mullibok, that I'm missing?
It is very thematic with if you think that a player might not be able to compare them to different players and make your call based on that. I mean, for interactions, otherwise, I know from how much Ryback grumbles about it that you could be at a seamstress. He has to get Fey Gooch up to be the demon at the end of the game.
Hey.
That's true.
That's because Ryback was a seamstress and I was the outsider checked against a minion who got jumped to later in the game.
Rip.
Yes. It's like, yep, skills is definitely evil. Let's kill skills. Yep, I'm definitely good. I was in the seamstress with skills. Everything's fine here.
Yeah, it was great.
So how do you feel about the seamstress on this one then? Beyond the things that you can do on SMV, most of which you can do here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see how it fits into the theme here, right? If you get a no, that's very obviously like, ooh, which of these pings is the evil pair, or is this a vortox? If you get a yes, there's every world where it's just a legion and you've just picked 2 legion, or there's a world where it's vortox and actually one of them is evil, or there's a world where you've just picked 2 evil on, early on in the game, which I have done and then lost the game because I failed to convince everybody else. I randomly managed to pick 2 evil on night 1, which I did. Yeah, like I think there's a lot of, interesting information that can come from a seamstress no matter what answer you actually get.
I don't know if either of you caught the TPI game a while back, where the evil team was Nikki, Ben Burns, and Chris, and they had the most unsubtle, hey, let's go, and they're all sat next to each other, and they had the most unsubtle, hey, everyone, let's go have a chat about our evil plans conversation right at the start of day 1. And it turned out that there was a seamstress yes ping on Ben and Nikki, and also a chef too, and it was game on day 1.
Boy.
Good night.
That was a game. I think that one's on YouTube, actually. Definitely looked like a slog for the evil team, that one. It was Chris was the Zombull as well, so it didn't end quickly.
Oh no. That's the worst news. You have to kill all of them twice.
Yep. I think we executed evil players 5 times out of 6 in 6 days on that game.
Oh, that's so painful.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and check, but yeah. So yeah, that sometimes the seamstress ping, if it lines up socially on 2 evil players, can really help the good team. But yeah, for sure, sometimes it can be a setback.
Sometimes you do it night 1 and then you have to be like, no, I seamstress checked these players and I got a yes, but I don't think that makes them good. I think they're evil. And people will just be like, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a reason with a recluse on script to take a higher gamble of not checking people right away and seeing if you're actually going to hit somebody claiming recluse or not. But it does make it more likely you just die with no info, which is always feels bad.
It does.
I had a game on TPI where I was a seamstress and I decided to check on night 1 knowing that there's a recluse on the script. And guess who I hit on night 1?
Was it the recluse?
Sure was.
Was I evil in that game?
I don't remember. I just remember that Nadine was the recluse, and I don't remember what Ed was, but Ed was the other player that I checked.
It seems to ring a bell. I think I might have been the Sarah Novus in that game. I think that was during my Sarah run, wasn't it?
I have no idea. It was some time ago.
No, it probably wasn't then. I'm probably thinking of a different game. But, I mean, it would make sense for the Sarah Novus if you were the seamstress.
If you were in the game, I'm sure you were evil.
Yeah.
I remember that definitely helped confirm the recluse because the recluse had multiple pings on them at that point now because, something else had gotten an evil ping on the recluse, and so Nadine pretty much just was, the confirmed recluse from it. But I was a sad seamstress.
Well, you're the librarian now. Deal with it.
I guess.
Yeah. I think that's all of the townsfolk that we've really spoken on. The last thing on the townsfolk is Farmer Soldier. How do you feel about characters that want to be attacked in the night on a Legion script in general?
I love them.
I think there is, man, there is space for a farmer in a Legion game. It's tricky because it looks so. If you think you're in a Legion game, it looks so Legion-y to be in a farmer chain. So that's a really, like, you really have to trust that these players are actually the good ones, and that one of them died at night, and that is the world. I think it's interesting.
I think Ed ran a game on Patter's stream a couple of months back, didn't he, where he set up a game and then threw a farmer in last minute and killed them on the first night, a Legion game.
I think so.
Yeah,
I seem to remember that. I don't think I actually saw that game, but I think I had a few people tell me about it. But that is an interesting thing that you could do to break the meta of if you think it's a Legion game, the first person who died, probably Legion. Maybe they're just a character that the storyteller decided to kill as an extra good player. You know?
It is, as the storyteller, a much riskier position to put the good team in by killing a good player that early, because you don't really have the opportunity to go back on it later. You know,
I mean,
I think the compromise was to have like 4 good players instead of 3, right?
You throw an extra townsfolk in, and one that doesn't mind dying early on, and then kill them off early on. It's still a little bit weaker because that's one extra player that the Legion can get away with convincing and then dogpiling everyone. But I think that's less of a problem with Farmer because like those 2 players are connected for the rest of the game, right? So it's basically only 1 player.
Okay, but imagine being a Legion who has the hard claim of farmer and you believe it from somebody and then they die first and then you just immediately go to them and I'm like, I'm the farmer now. And now they have 2 players who are like, I'm the farmer now.
Yeah, I don't know if they claimed it to anyone on the first day. Probably not. But yeah, absolutely. I do think that evil players claim, like, double claiming things which are kind of objective is really interesting. Like, on BMR, I want to see more minions just when someone comes back to life on after the second night, just be like, yeah, that was definitely the professor, so who's the professor? And then 2 players put their hands up. Yeah, I'm a professor.
Yeah.
That player's the professor, I'm also a professor. What the fuck you gonna do about it? One of us is confirmed. Yeah. Is there anything else anyone wants to say about any of these good characters? Because we've also talked about the outsiders quite a bit. I suppose we can touch on the Klutz a bit further. Mullibok,
Klutz in a Legion game feels bad. Probably don't do that. But for the most part, like, you really should be restraining yourself on outsiders in Legion games anyway. I would say Damsel in a Legion game's also not a good idea.
I'm not sure any of these outsiders are great for a Legion game, but like that's not a problem on the script, is it? Reckless is fine, depending on what the townsfolk you put in play are. But like,
I would say Recluse is fine, as long as you are very aware of what you do with the information. Like, I've been in a Legion game where all of Good's information somehow pinged off of a Recluse, and whether it was good or not good information, it's just impossible to really sort out at that point, and it feels really fucking bad.
I think Reckless is fine if the extra if the only townsfolk that gains information about alignments and characters is the chef, let's say, or then even the noble, I think probably is I think the Reckless would balance a noble in a Legion game.
I would say, like, if I put like a Recluse and a Fortune Teller in a Legion game, I would actually be more likely to just make the Recluse not register to the Fortune Teller. Like, if they pick the Recluse and another good player, I'm not telling them yes, I will tell them no.
Yeah.
Well, that might be a weird situation where you actually make the Recluse the real red herring so that the other good players don't register the Fortune Teller.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You could, or you could make the Fortune Teller themselves their own red herring.
Yeah. Or you can make the Reckless the red herring and move it to the Fortune Teller in the middle of the game.
Please don't.
Don't do that. Yeah, I think that this is a script where, for the most part, I would be like, okay, it's a Legion game. I'm going to run it without any outsiders. Just flip the order, flip the number of characters. Don't mess about with it any further. If it were a base 2 outsider game, naturally, I might throw a Recluse in. But as a rule, I think I'd be fine with like 3 townsfolk against 9 Legion here, as a rule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe throw a soldier or a farmer in and go for that gambit, or a top 4 and go for and kill them off on the first night, something like that. But yeah, I think this is like outsiders that don't work with Legion. It's fine because you don't have to have them.
I think Recluse with twins could actually be kind of interesting because it's not as easy to solve them, right? The empath might not be able to solve them. The seamstress might not be able to solve them.
You mean have the Recluse be a twin?
Yeah, have the Recluse be the good twin, and then
Actually,
it doesn't matter what alignment gathering like roles are out there and are sat near them because they'll just always to these roles read as evil, right?
actually, that is something just struck me. Rewind the conversation quite a long way to our discussion of Fangu Monk. It's actually not that bad if an outsider dies in a base 0 game, because let's go through the outsiders. Drunk, doesn't know. Damsel could have been added by the Huntsman. Recluse can die anyway. Klutz is the only one Klutz is the only one that can die on the first night and go, hey everybody, I know for certain that this is a Fangu game that has been and that the monk has protected the demon. Like, the other 3 don't know that.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, probably if the Recluse is the only outsider, you don't want to be killing them if the Fangu attacks them, because that's rough. But, it is legal.
It is legal, yeah. And late game, if it happens late game, you might really consider just letting them die then.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's another Recluse interaction. Recluse with the evil twin. Mid-game, the evil twin gets a new twin. Did the Recluse get Fangu jump? Maybe. It doesn't.
Ooh, that's fun.
It could out the evil twin.
I like that.
It could, but it looks like a very specific world, and if you manage to do that late game, then it's really if you make the Recluse a twin, it is 100%, no matter what you end up doing with that, whether you change the twin later on or not, that might out the evil twin, sure, but if you do it late enough in the game, it's always going to be a social call on which of these twins is evil, and again, in that moving scenario, whether that Recluse just got jumped to or the Storyteller just decided to register them as evil to the twins and move it.
Yeah. If you just made that happen when it's Final 5, so like the evil twin's exposed, they get executed. You go to Final 3, is the Recluse the Fangu or not?
Yeah.
Or just for fun, start of the game. Wake the evil twin up, point at the Recluse, and show them a Legion. Just for fun.
Is that legal?
What's the scenario?
You wake the evil twin up, point at the Recluse, and show them the evil twin character token.
Okay, yes, technically that's legal, but please don't.
I mean, it doesn't do anything bad. It just says this player is the Recluse.
As long as your evil twin knows what's up.
Yeah, if your evil twin knows what's up, then sure, it might be a funny thing to do. Same thing as like registering a spy to themselves in the Grim, or registering the Recluse as the demon in the Grim to the spy when they've already gotten their demon info, so they know that's not the case. But like, if it's a player who doesn't know what's up, don't do that.
Yeah,
because it's just going to confuse somebody in a way that's not really going to be pleasant.
It's not going to have a mechanical effect on the game. It's just funny.
But yeah, I suppose that's something that I always talk about when I talk about storytelling, which is know your players, know your group. If something is going to be fun or funny for them, then absolutely go for it. Do weird shit like that. But if you're ever not sure, then err on the side of just play it more straightforward and let them have just a straightforwardly good time, unless or until you know better.
I agree. It will be funny. Yeah, anything else on the Outsiders? Then let's move on to our Minions. We've spoken about the Evil Twin and the Boom Dandy quite a bit, but I'm happy to go over them again if we have anything we want to talk about.
Mostly, like what I would want to mention there is just the Boom Dandy vortox tension, which I think is fantastic. Not everybody likes,
very
but
true.
I love it.
Particularly given that there is some pretty good vortox food on this script in the Chef Noble Librarian.
Yep.
And to a lesser extent, Klutz.
Yeah, there's a lot of klutzes who want to get executed early on.
Yeah.
Damsel wants to get executed early on and maybe cagey about why, right?
Yeah, I've
definitely had a Boom Dandy explode on day one by claiming Klutz.
Nice.
I used to be a kill me as the Klutz day one sort of person. I'm not anymore. I'll put myself forward if there's no if it doesn't look like town want to kill anyone else and there's a vortox on the script, I'll have a go. But I think these days I'd rather get a taste for the temperature and use my ability on the offense and get a bit of information out of it.
Yeah, I think there's benefits to playing as a klutz both ways, right? Like on day one, mathematically, if you were to randomly pick, you are more likely to hit a good player. Later in the game, you are more likely to have more information and more social reads for you to go off of.
The only exception.
I definitely prefer waiting a little bit and saying, you know what, I think this person's good, and I think if other people would just believe their information more, it would help, and pick them.
What I will caution is if you end up on a script with a Mesephiles, don't go off of your reads from the previous day, Michael.
The main exception to that on SMV, and it does carry over to this script, although it's a different character, is that if I hear of somebody who is coming up to me and saying, "You're the only person I'm going to say this to, I'm the sage," I'll die and pick them. You know, if you're evil and you think I'm the klutz, claim sage to me. I'll probably get myself killed and pick you just because I want to.
The first time I was the klutz, that's exactly what happened.
Amazing.
Yep. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I'll just pick you and confirm you as good, and then you'll die. And then the game just ended.
That's actually what happened on the TPI's in-person example games. That happened in the SMB game.
Amazing.
The klutz picks the demon who whispered them privately they were the sage, and the evil team won.
I've not watched those games in a year and a half. I've watched them again. But yeah, that is something that I tend to do as a klutz. And on this script, I guess that translates to the farmer and the soldier.
Yep.
But yeah, it's our good characters. We spoke about the Boom Dandy tension a little bit. Is there anything else either of you want to talk about on the twin or the Boom Dandy?
I would just say that it wasn't one of my thoughts when adding vortox, but vortox definitely increases the Boom Dandy's odds by a fair bit, I think.
Yeah, it does. In which case, we'll chat about the Poisoner and the Serenovus for a bit then. I think these two characters, in a weird way, fill the same niche.
Right, they're about causing misinformation. I mean, arguably, Serenovus is about that, right? Like, that is sort of the intention of Madness, right? As stated by Steven. Like, the intention here is to cause players to, spread misinformation. But some people look at Serenovus as more of like an execution maker, with the misinformation being like the perk added on, as opposed to the other way around. So I suppose it depends on how you personally feel about what Serenovus's like main intent is, and main, I think in theory it definitely makes sense for Serenovus to be looked at as a misinformation spreader. But in practice, I find that a lot of players are they find a way around it, right? They make their claims kind of vague. They don't really give out specific information, or they find clever ways to get their real information out there, but looking like something else, So I think that theoretically Serenovus is a stronger misinformation spreader than it is in actual practice, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with that, because last time I played SNV, one of the first people I talked to said, I'm the clockmaker, and I'm just going to hold on to my number for a couple days until I get the lay of the land. And that person was just the clockmaker, right? But if you're Sarah Novus as a clockmaker, you kind of want to say that as opposed to giving out fake information. And so I do think that the misinformation is kind of about it's often about creating like just double claims and uncertainty that people are what they say they are, and that it obviously depends on how people play it, but a lot of people are hesitant to spread too much misinformation when they're Sarah Novus.
Alejo is, of course, the exact opposite.
I was about to say the cowards. Actually, that's an interesting question for you both. How do you? Let's say that you're the Sarah Novus. Would you prefer to find a player who you think is going to seriously lean into it and spread all manner of information? Or would you prefer to find a player who is more likely to go, nah, I don't want to do this. I have been selected by the Sarah Novus, and get themselves executed, get yourself a free execution that way? What do you consider to be the goal of the Sarah Novus from that perspective?
Actually don't have a strong preference. I'd be fine with either one. They both have their advantages for their own reasons, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's a tricky one, because lately I've been playing Sarah Novus where I'm just more likely to move it a lot because I find it also obscures. I'm the Sarah Novus, bit of a bonus. So if you move it every day, you're definitely less likely to get that execution. But how I would most like to play it is just kind of like lay low for a little bit and then find somebody who says, okay, this person's info is going to matter a lot, and then try to lock it on them and get them to say, okay, I have to admit, I was just bluffing. I was the farmer. I don't want to cause any more misinformation, so I'm going to drop my my bluff of what's actually their real role. So that's how I'd probably lean towards playing it.
I think, okay, so I'm going to amend my answer slightly to add in a couple of things. One is, if I know that there is a player who really enjoys interacting with madness, I will probably, as a Sarah Novus, be more likely to target that person because I know that it gives them a fun game. And I care, first and foremost, about everybody in the game being able to have fun. And if I can make somebody else's game more fun by making them mad, then heck yeah, I'm going to do that, right? Maybe not every single time, but I will probably favor them. And the other amendment that I do want to add onto, like, I don't have a strong preference either way, but I might have a preference depending on how the particular storyteller runs madness, and more specifically, how likely they are to execute players who don't want to play along with madness. Because some storytellers, especially early on, are less likely to execute players who just very blatantly break madness, right? Because there's a certain sort of suspicion that can come off of that. Oh, you're claiming to be made Sarah Novus mad, and you're claiming you're not actually this role or whatever, and the storyteller isn't executing you. Is that because you're the boom dandy and you're trying to get, make yourself look sus? Is it because it's Legion and you're trying to fake something and you can't be executed? What is the reason why the storyteller isn't executing you? But I think if I'm the Sarah Novus specifically, like, I get why storytellers don't execute every single time off of, even blatant madness breaks some of the time. Hard confirming that there's a Sarah Novus in play, hard confirms it's not Legion, for example. But as the Sarah Novus personally, I would prefer for storytellers to most of the time actually just execute that and let me have my shortened day and let me have the waste of the kill for the good team. Give me that part of my ability. So if I'm with a storyteller who is less likely to execute blatant breaks because they want to play up let's make this person suspicious by not executing them, I probably would be seeking to cause, to look for the people who are going to lean hard into it and cause a lot of misinformation. If I'm with a storyteller who is quite happy to execute off of Sarah Novus's, then I don't have a strong preference.
Yeah, I can attest to the first part of what you said, that you will pick someone just because you think they'd enjoy it. I remember I'm pretty sure the last time we were both evil together, one of only 2 times it's ever happened. Not in a Legion game. I was your demon, you were the Serenovus.
Yeah, I made you Serenovus bad.
And you Serenovus me on the first day. I was like, cool,
Yep.
I'm the lunatic. And I was not the lunatic. And then I found out that you were
Yeah,
my minion.
I talked to you and had to assure you, like, you're definitely not the lunatic.
Yeah.
I am, in fact, your minion. I just know that you like Serenovus madness. And
yeah, then I found out that you were my minion, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm not the lunatic. That is the one name you could have said. Maybe 1 or 2 people in that game that you could have said that would make me believe that I wasn't the lunatic. But yeah, that was a fun game. Well, it wasn't. It was a terrible game, but it was a fun game.
There were parts of that game that were fun.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the latter thing that you said. There are storytellers that I otherwise think are really good storytellers who make it a point of pride to say, I will never execute a mutant. I will just let them simmer. If you say, I am the mutant, then I'm not going to execute you because that will confirm you, and I just want to leave you there looking suspicious. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, so what is the point of the mutant in your games?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there are times to do that for sure, but a lot of the time, it is often more beneficial to just like cut the good team's time short. And it kind of depends on when they're doing it and what their intent is, right? Like a mutant who comes out immediately is probably trying to get executed, so kind of acting a bit like a pseudo virgin, right? And I might not execute that, but what they have done is opened themselves up for me as a storyteller to execute them whenever I want, and whenever I think is the most harmful for their team, which I might very well hold on to do that for. But to say that you never do it is definitely defeating the purpose. And same with Serenovus, right? If you have blatant Serenovus breaks, it confirms there's a Serenovus in play. And?
Yeah.
Great, it means that this is not a Legion game on this script, but it also means that the Serenovus ability actually did something. There's a reason there's 2 parts to this ability, and there's a reason that madness is always something that players have a choice in, right? The Serenovus is not necessarily about compelling a player to do anything, because you're never compelled to interact with madness if you don't want to, but there is a consequence that will potentially come, if you don't. And I think some storytellers are not heavy-handed enough on making that consequence of not interacting with it be a thing that actually happens.
I also feel like sometimes storytellers can wait a bit too long and say, well, I want to see who gets on the block. But then it's just really heavy signaling when an evil player is on the block. If it's the demon, then it's just too late for the entire game, and the Serenovus execution is going to save them anyway. So I have to think that
I have a thought on that.
Just kill them before the nominations even start, and then the evil doesn't even have a chance to look suspicious that day.
So I definitely agree. I do think that a lot of times, if you're sort of sitting there going let's just see how the nominations go, don't do that. Just fucking kill whoever has broken madness there. Don't give Town the opportunity to put an evil on the block and make it that obvious. However, I will also say that I think that storytellers should fake saving an evil player, but actually that's a good player, more frequently with that move. If you do that, it no longer becomes as hard to meta that this execution clearly happened in order to save an evil player, because they'll apply that logic and then they'll be killing good players off of it. I have done that as a storyteller. I have waited to execute somebody for when there was a good player on the block, and it feels like, I get why storytellers don't do that. It does feel weird to use an outsider to save a fellow good player, but it makes that player look so suspicious, because that is the meta, right? That, storytellers who hold on to this are only doing it because that player is evil, and they're trying to save evil here. That'll backfire.
It's kind of the same as a devil's advocate picking a good player just to cause chaos, right? Except with except with more of a downside, because this time a good player is getting executed instead of no one getting executed, or no one dying to execution.
A good player gets executed, and then probably what happens is the good player who was on the block gets executed the next day.
Yeah, I completely agree with that one. it depends on my situation, because quite often I do like to think about it for a moment. Not always. Like sometimes there are times when I will just execute, but like I typically make up my mind to execute either before any nominations, in which case I just execute at the time, or right at the end, or during nominations, with a point to execute at the end of the day, regardless of who's on the block. I think. Which does kind of mean that I say good players and evil players with roughly equal regularity, but I think that's fine. Like you're saying.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I do think there is an inclination that a lot of storytellers, a lot of script builders have, to put the Cerenovus with the Pixie, because they're both like madness roles, right? They both contain the word mad in their character.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it's a great combo, because, like, yeah, the Cerenovus and the mutant can work in opposite directions, and that can be the same sort of thing as the Cerenovus and the Pixie. But the difference there is that the Cerenovus ability and the mutant ability are both supposed to help the evil team, whereas the Pixie ability is supposed to help the good team, and it can be completely nullified by a lucky shot from the Cerenovus. And yeah, that's also true of the poison and nullifying once per game abilities, including start knowing abilities. But I don't know. It just feels like a tension that I don't always love, although there are ways around it, and if you're not locked. But yeah, I'm curious to get
I was
thoughts on
going
that
to
one.
say that's sort of something that I was going to bring this interaction up as well, actually, for that reason, which is basically like how do you, Mullibok, as a storyteller, view Cerenovus Pixie? Because, like, for me, if a Pixie gets hit once by a Cerenovus, it's probably fine. They can almost certainly back their way out of it in a way that's believable. But if they get locked by the Cerenovus, like, rip the Pixie, that sucks, I guess. But they have turned into a role that is just verifying another good player. They've turned into sort of like a softer washerwoman, right? Which is fine. It's not the best, to be sure. It's not the funnest for the Pixie. But like any role that gets, I think, Cerenovus locked, especially other like strong information roles, like if they find the fortune teller and just lock down the fortune teller, and the fortune teller can never tell you who their guesses are, rip the fortune teller. Sucks to be you. So. But how do you think of that, Mullibok? Like, what happens if a Cerenovus targets a Pixie?
I think that if the Cerenovus targeted the Pixie, and the Pixie abided by the Cerenovus, the day before the marked player dies, then yeah, the Pixie's probably out of luck as far as getting the ability. I think that if at any point they're released from that and both of them are still alive, and the Pixie is just able to say at that point, I was Cerenovus, I'm actually, my Pixie scene role, and I'm not this thing that the Cerenovus was making me claim. I think that at that point I wouldn't. I would give them like the clean slate, and yet you'd be fine as far as getting the ability at that point, because you're probably going to be really believable that you are Cerenovus. Mm-hmm. So, it does kind of mechanically shut off the second part of the Pixie's ability in the way that the Cerenovus doesn't get to mechanically shut off the way that other people would function, and that definitely is unfortunate for them, and like less fun for them. I don't think it's the end of the world, because they do still get useful information as far as knowing that a townsfolk is in play, and if one person is claiming that and it's not vortox, then that person should be good, unless run through the drunken poison stuff as per usual. But that's the same for everybody's ability, so I think it's something out of it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's the Pixie is kind of, it is a past tense ability, but it's quite quite a recent ability, right? Like it's looking at whether they were convincing that they were, like trying to convince people they were whatever they were at the time that they died is like the way that I think that can be read. So I think that it's pretty easy to go about that in that sense.
I also feel like overall, like, because when I've been in games with like Pixie Serenovus, I've either had players ask me as the ST how I would do that, or I have asked the ST how they might run that. And I feel like in general, storytellers are willing to be a bit softer on pixies when it comes to like their madness and what counts as the pixie being mad enough to gain their ability, right? Like most storytellers in my experience aren't going to tell a pixie, sorry, you were targeted once, and so for one day you had to claim this thing even though you rolled it back, even though you were claiming something else before. Also, after you rolled it back, that means you're just fucked. Like no ST that I've ever played with, and I as an ST would not run pixie that way. Like, yes, if they're Serenovus locked, then that does suck, but not everybody's Serenovus locks. Sometimes you kill the Serenovus early. Sometimes they don't hit you until mid-game, and if you have been convincing enough up until that point, then I would probably still give it to you, right? Like, people are a lot softer on the pixie madness, like with Serenovus stuff, than they might be on the negative consequences of madness interactions.
I'm not sure I agree with that, to be honest, because I like the way that I read the pixie ability is if you are mad that you are this character, you gain their ability when they die. I read that as being at the point that they die. Like you can almost rejig the aspects of that sentence to if you are mad that you are this character when they die, you gain their ability. And I think that if you are mad that you are let's say the empath when the empath dies, you are not by definition also mad that you are the chef, which the Serenovus has told you to be, in which case you might be executed. And if you are mad that you are the chef, you are by definition not mad that you are the empath, in which case you don't get the ability.
Okay, so what I would say to that is a very, very strict reading of the pixie ability, and sure, that is legitimate. I can't tell you that that's not wrong, because it's not wrong. But it is a very strict reading of the ability, and in my experience, most storytellers are willing to look at the pixie madness at a larger wholesale. Right? How have you been mad throughout the course of the game when it comes to the pixie, as opposed to how most storytellers would run Serenovus or Mutant, which is how are you mad right now? So again, if you want to read pixie that strictly, I can't stop you, by all means. That is a valid interpretation. It is not my personal interpretation, and I do think that strict interpretation would specifically make Pixie Serenovus a much worse combo than if you're willing to look at the Pixie from a larger standpoint of how they have been playing in the game in general.
I suppose that the big question related to that ability, and I don't know the answer to this because I don't have I'm not a Kickstarter backer, so I don't have the Kickstarter almanac, is what the word "were" means and whether it is intended to apply to the "when they die" clause. Because if it's not, then so long as the pixie was mad at any point in the game that they were that character, then you can argue that they should get the ability. But if it is supposed to, but if it's not supposed to apply to that, and that is the case, then you could also argue that because they claimed it once in a conversation with somebody, they were mad at some point in the game that they were that character, so they should get the ability. Whereas if it is tied to the "when they die" clause, then they need to maintain that. But that does then imply that if they were Sered on that last day, they don't get it.
Okay, so what I have done is hopped into the experimental how to run, which is what
Awesome.
Ed has said about the character.
Yep.
So what Ed has said is in the how to run, it says if the pixie is consistently mad that they are this character, and I think that what consistently mad means is open to interpretation, right? It consistently mad can, in a very strict sense, mean that they had to have claimed this every single day, at every single moment, including at the moment where they have been made Cerenovus mad, and if they didn't at the moment that they were made Cerenovus mad, then they're just completely fucked. But you can also take consistently mad as meaning they have spent 90% of the game hard claiming this role and then got hit by a Cerenovus. But everybody still believes that they are, in fact, actually this other role.
Yeah. I would also say that I suppose it's kind of not that different to a poisoner, which can also completely nullify the second aspect of the Pixie's ability with a single pick.
Yeah. I think more consistently than a Cerenovus can.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can actually read you something from the Kickstarter almanac.
Oh, awesome.
Helpful. Okay, so if the Pixie player pretends they are this townsfolk, they gain the ability of this townsfolk when the townsfolk dies. They could have spoken loudly about being the character for one day, or pretended to be the character each day of this game, or accused the townsfolk of being a liar. The storyteller is the judge of whether or not a player was convincing by, quote, being mad that they are this character, quote.
Interesting. The first clause of that last sentence seems to imply that if the storyteller judges that they did a good enough job of it, then they could just claim it on one day and then never claim it again for the rest of the game. Interesting.
Sure. I mean, if you convince enough people immediately and then, you don't do anything to contradict that, then you are essentially still consistently maintaining that madness, right? It's kind of why, a mutant who claims mutant once and then never rolls it back can be executed even on future days, even if they don't say, I am the mutant ever again, because they convinced players that they were an outsider and then did nothing to change anybody's mind about it.
Sure. The only problem then is that they are then not being mad that they are the chef if they are mad that they are the empath. Unless you believe that you can be mad about two contradictory things at the same time, which is a very different question.
Yeah, I mean, definitionally, no. Of course, you cannot be both the chef or the empath, right? You are either one or the other. You cannot be both. And as a result, you can only be mad as one of those things at any specific given moment. Sure. But again, I think that is a very strict and a very harsh reading of the Pixie ability, which is meant to be a townsfolk. And I think that, in my experience, most storytellers don't read it that strictly or harshly.
Yeah, I mean, the counter to that then is that is a significant buff to the Cerenovus, because if the empath claims to be the empath on day one and is believed, and then gets picked by the Cerenovus on day 3 as the huntsman, and then they spend their entire time doing their best to convince people that they are the huntsman, the storyteller can still execute them because they had previously claimed to be the empath.
I mean, I just think that Cerenovus and Pixie Madness are two slightly different things. Yes, they both involve madness, but they interact with them differently, and therefore having different guidelines for how you would run them makes sense to me.
Yeah, I suppose the difference is the fact that the Pixie uses the word were and the Cerenovus uses the word are.
Yeah, the Cerenovus is clearly, their ability is about what is currently happening right now in this very moment. And I think that Pixie's wording allows for a much more open and broad interpretation for how has the Pixie been for the game overall, the entire course of the game. What have they been doing on previous days? What are they doing now? And how hard does that contradict what they have been doing before? At what point in the game is this where,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A lot of times, we know as storytellers that a lot of times late game, the Cerenovus who is still around or who has been Vigor killed, players can tell who's been made Cerenovus mad because they'll do a very sudden hard pivot. And we still don't execute that just because we can tell that players might have a pretty strong suspicion, right? Or people specifically will say things like, let's not push on that. And most of the time that player will not be executed, right? So
yeah, but I think I think we should leave that there because I think we'll probably end up just talking in circles, but that is fair enough. The poisoner has Quite a few juicy targets on the first night, it has to be said.
Yeah, a poisoner who's not in a vortox game is probably pretty happy to hit. Okay, so an oracle or a monk wouldn't really do anything. If you hit a huntsman, that's probably not going to do a whole lot. Farmer, soldier, mayor, obviously same things on night one. So like about half of the townsfolk are pretty good to hit on night one. Obviously outsiders aren't, but
obviously they're going to end up hitting the recluse because that's just what poisons do.
Oh yeah, inevitable. If you have a recluse in and you're planning on doing like night one shenanigans with it, the poisoner will hit them.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Noble. We'll probably still give you the recluse, but now they got to be good.
Yeah.
There's actually not a whole lot of shenanigans you can do on the first night with the recluse. Yeah.
Yeah, librarian, depending on what the base outsider account is. Noble, chef, maybe. Let's see what else. Empath, fortune teller, seamstress.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is, of course, if the seamstress goes on night one and chooses recluse, if the fortune teller picks them, if the empath is next to them. Like, obviously, all of the regular ifs clauses are in there.
Yeah, I don't think the poisoner can cause too many sad storytellers on this script compared to just trouble brewing. It's about the same level of sad storyteller. Maybe a little bit more. But yeah.
It could foil your librarian 0 plans, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that can happen on TV as well. But obviously, because it's more interesting here, it's more of a downside here, I suppose.
Yeah,
I think when
librarian
you write
0 is weirder unless there's a baron. If you wanted to, well, it's weird because librarian 0 in TB.
Base
it doesn't
outsider.
make sense except on base 0, but then you'll never have only the recluse in play.
No, base 1 outsider.
It's really
base 1.
You're saying,
but base 1 you're confirming the recluse kind of with the librarian.
You're saying
0.
there is a recluse. I'm not going
like
to...
you're the drunk or this person's the recluse,
or even poison.
But here, like vigor mortis could mean that there just isn't one.
Yeah, what you're saying is that there is a recluse in play on TV. I'm not going to tell you who it is. It's a direct nerf compared to showing the librarian one of these two players is the recluse.
Yeah.
I think, Alejo, when you write your script that's all about this, like librarian 0 interactions, consider about the poisoner and maybe do like a widow instead, because a widow is not likely to hit that recluse on night 1 and fuck with you.
That's true. Yeah, what else could a poisoner get up to? First night and beyond.
So I think there is an interesting interaction in if the players solve that it's a vortox game and there's a monk and the monk is choosing to protect a specific player and is able to tell the player, like, if this is a vortox game, your information is good, is true, because I'm protecting you from the vortox, and the poisoner finds the monk. That could be interesting.
Yeah. The monk that thinks they've been giving players good information but aren't.
Yeah, exactly. The monk is telling you your information is true and good, even though it is a vortox game, and the poisoner says no. I mean, obviously you have like your farmer. If evil can find the farmer, poison that, take up the farmer claim.
Just to respond to chat, damsels can be drunk, they cannot be the drunk.
Yes, they can be drunk status or poisoned, but not the drunk.
A drunk damsel doesn't really do a whole lot. The only way that can really affect the game is if they are somehow drunk from the very start of the game, like from setup, which I don't think is possible with the characters that we currently have, amnesiac abilities aside. Is that correct?
I mean, if a damsel is drunk at the point where a minion correctly guessed them, it means that the game goes on, which means that either the damsel player figures out that they're somehow drunk or poisoned and that player is still evil, or it just makes the Damsel think that that player is good and not a
Yeah,
minion, but I think for the minion that feels real fucking bad.
Yeah, that's not what I was saying. I was saying that there is currently no way for a damsel to be drunk at the start of the game. Like
There is the Puzzle Master, but we don't talk about
the Puzzle
that.
Master. Yeah, you're right. Puzzle Master.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, the Puzzle Master is the only way for the damsel to be drunk at the start of the game, which means that the minions will, Puzzle Master and Amnesiac shenanigans aside, always learn that there is a damsel in play. The only way that a drunk damsel can have any mechanical effect on the game is what Navian just spelled out, which is the minions guessing correctly and not winning, which isn't really that interesting, I don't think.
I would say mostly it's not fun for the evil player there. It might be interesting in that from the damsel's perspective, it clears that player as being good when they're actually not, but I think you and I, Leho, know that like an outsider ability being negated and instead the game continuing when it could have just been over, like you probably, as a whole, prefer that the game would have just been over.
Yes, Skills.
Regardless of what interestingness does come out of that.
Yes, Skills. We see you. No, that was... I agree. But like, that's... There are times when it can't be avoided, right? Like a minstrel or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
But then again, if there's a minstrel on the script, probably don't make a guess after a minion was just executed.
Right, and as an evil player, you're going to be much more keen on it being a minstrel, potentially a minstrel day, because of the fact that the kill won't go through. And like, you'll know, like, you can't know 100% for sure, like, oh, was that a soldier, was that a monk, whatever, like, whatever other protective roles might be on there. But you have a strong hint.
But still, unless the player that you are certain is the damsel is about to be executed, probably just leave it a day if there were no kills in the night.
Remember that time I was a poisoner and you were the damsel and I had to be poisoned for like half the game?
I do remember that, yeah, because I was the damsel, which meant that you had to be the poisoner. Because I was good, which meant that you had to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I swear it's statistically significant.
It is. At some point, you got picked by the huntsman and turned, and you were still poisoned. I think you had like one night of not being poisoned info off of whatever you turned into. I don't remember what it was, but then you went back to being poisoned.
Yeah, I think you won that game.
I cannot remember. I just remember being a poisoner. And Ben came and got my poison pick and then came back later to be like, oh, by the way, there's a damsel in play. And I laughed and I was like, I sure hope I didn't pick them.
Yep. I think that was one of those many games where it's got to Final 3 and I was like...
You're evil, aren't you?
Navian's evil.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
where you said, oh no, Navian, you're evil, aren't you?
I'm used to it by now. It happens on day 2 now.
Yeah, well...
I just kind of just assume that you are, to be honest.
Unfortunately, the assumption holds up.
Yeah.
That would have been my S&B game experience if you weren't Snake Charmed. Just the sudden horrific realization of what was going on.
Well, yeah, because you were going to be set up as almost certainly evil in my world.
So I was going to know it was you once you said it was me.
Yeah, I was setting to frame you, the player next to you, and the player next to that as being 2 out of the 3 of these players are evil. And so I was going to convince you and Happy that like one of you is evil and the other one is poisoned. I was planning on trying to do like a bit of double duty there, right? And say to you like, I trust that you're good. I think that Happy's evil, and go to Happy and be like, I think that you're good. I think that Mullibok is evil. I think you and I are being poisoned. And to you be like, I think you're being poisoned.
Dogma suggests making the good twin the damsel. I suggest no. I suggest not.
I think saving that for scripts that have
heretic.
Yeah.
I think the only way that you can do that is if there's a heretic on the script, and even then, it's not a pleasant experience for probably anybody involved.
Yeah. All right, I think that's our minions done, unless anybody has something else they want to say on any of them.
I would just say that I have ST'd a game on the script where the poisoner tagged the huntsman on the night that they successfully picked the damsel, and it was
Ow.
so
Oh.
tragic. And
Ow.
the
Oh,
the
wow.
the damsel tried to fake that they got turned into a demon bluff or something, and it was so bad. It was
Oh.
so sad.
Oh, that is so sad, but also so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So then that just leaves us with our demons, which are the Fangu, the Vigor Mortis, the Vortox. I think we've mostly covered this. I think the only thing that we really need to talk about is the Vigor Mortis, which has two minions that it really wants to pick. It has one minion that is interesting to pick. We've already talked about how it interacts with the evil twin. One minion that it probably doesn't want to pick, except for the poison, and one outsider that it is smiling about.
True.
Yes,
Vigor Recluse.
I love Vigor Recluse. Fantastic. I do think that a vigor isn't going to want to kill a boom dandy in the early game. But when it gets to that like mid to late game point where good might be considering executing a boom dandy on purpose, because maybe it'll help them just clear up some worlds. Because I've been good discussing whether we should do that at sort of like a later game point. You might do it for a couple of reasons. One is if there is an ongoing information role sat nearby that boom dandy, it might be worthwhile to poison it halfway through the game. The other reason is, and this isn't specific to Vigor Mortis, although they do get the benefit of a poison out of it, but demons killing their minions in the night, because those minions are not demon candidates. There might be a point in the game where the boom dandy has been just suspicious enough that people are like, you're evil, but also we're pretty sure that you are specifically like the boom dandy trying to get executed, and you're just never a demon candidate. You might just kill a minion that's not a demon candidate to leave your demon candidates more open, right?
Yeah, if you know you're going to a final 3 without 3 evils, so you're not gunning for that, then removing somebody who nobody thinks is the demon, because like we don't have imp here they can't just become the demon, so removing them is perfectly good option.
So here's the game of this script that I want to see. Vigor Mortis kills Boom Dandy at the first available opportunity. So town execute the chef. And then the Vigor Mortis kills the Boom Dandy at the first available opportunity. And then the poisoner, as soon as nominations open the next day, Snap nominates the chef. And it's like, we've got to do a vortox check, right? And then the chef gets like no votes because they've not had a chance to discuss everything else. And then they're like, okay, we need to get someone on the block here. What are we going to do? Nobody wants to die. Well, we've still got one dead person we can nominate. I nominate the Boom Dandy.
That does work in specifically the world where evil burns the nomination on the player who got executed because they can't be the boom dandy.
Right, that's what they said. Yeah, that's why the poison snap nominates the chef to get that off the board.
Yeah. So you can try to engineer that. Like, it's a very niche scenario. It's one that I really hope to see someday. I have written other scripts like, and putting like Vigor Vortox and a minion that the Vigor may not necessarily want to kill, specifically with the hopes that someday I will get to see this very outside thing actually happen. I have yet to see it, but it's in my hopes and dreams.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really lucky, you might just get it off like town, just not paying attention to what might be happening.
Exactly.
I will say that I think the Vigor Mortis poison ability does get a bit of a buff when you start moving it onto scripts with things like Poisoner and Drunk, because it's just less like people aren't necessarily just going to say, okay, well, if this person's a minion, then we know that their neighbors are poisoned, because maybe that person's just getting bad information because there's a poisoner in the game. So it creates a lot more ambiguity, and it's not necessarily the case that like this person is being poisoned specifically because of Vigor Mortis.
Yeah, I can agree that vigor on specific custom scripts can. I mean, vigor can any demon more or less can be made weaker or stronger on custom scripts, and I think vigor is one that it can skew either way depending on what you do specifically with the minions.
Yeah, it's such an easy one to under or overpower, right? Like,
Yep.
Vigor Mortis with a poisoner, so strong. Vigor Mortis with a psychopath, so strong. Vigor Mortis with a fearmonger, lol.
Depends on what you want to do with the fearmonger.
Yeah.
If you want it to get the win condition, then like don't kill that. If you want the paranoia of the fearmonger, just like
Picking random
moving it
people
around a
late
little bit, burying it halfway through the game to make it look like somebody else might have been the fearmonger, and then bringing it back out on the final 3. Hilarious.
Quite funny. But yeah, it's always going to have that baseline of poisoning somebody. But that's probably about it. For some minions. Whereas other minions, awesome. Kill them.
Yep. I mean, I talked earlier about like kill more twins in the night, whether you're a Vigor Mortis or not.
Yeah. That probably wraps up a Vigor Mortis discussion. Do we have anything else that we want to talk about with regards to the other 3 demons? I think I'm kind of covered everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of roles that like, so when you put Legion on a script, I think you can't just throw it on any given script, right? It doesn't unfortunately work very well with a lot of roles, and there's a reason that you see like Legion Vortox specifically paired up on a lot of customs. It's because Vortox is easily the best potential cover for like the weird information, right? A chef gets a massive number, and and of course having drunken poisoner as well help cover for that. But multiple of these roles will think like are pretty strong Legion detectors. A chef with a really high number, a an empath with a 2, and then somebody dies, and you just keep getting 2s. Fortune tellers with massive amounts of yeses, oracles with really high numbers. Yeah, like those will all be Legion detectors that can be explained away by Vortox. I do think the noble interaction with Legion on a script is really interesting, though, because when you're a noble and there's Legion on the script, you basically just do not want to kill into your pings at all, until you figure out this is a Legion game, right? I think probably as a noble, your worst possible thing is getting to a final 3 where like literally all of your pings are alive, because it doesn't help you solve anything. But like at least for a good portion of the game, I think so. Like noble's ability isn't really as much about finding that evil. It sort of is, but mostly it's about confirming 2 players, and that's in a Legion game really important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mullibok, is there anything else you want to talk about on these demons?
I do agree with what Navy said. If you can work out that, I don't know, you are almost handing the noble the keys to the castle. If they can figure out, okay, one of these 2 people is evil, I can convince town to kill both of them and just say, okay, me and this other person in my pig, we're riding it to the end game. Then if you can get people to trust you on that, that is perhaps the most powerful townsfolk if it's a known Legion game.
That's the difficulty, is getting people to trust you. I've been that noble who, when we got to the end of a game, was like very specifically based on whom, which of my pings were alive. I was like, very specifically, if it is a Legion world, these players are good, and the last Legion must be this one. If it is not a Legion world, then it's this completely other different person over there. And I can't remember which world it ended up being or who ended up winning or losing that game. But I know that I've been a noble with a Legion on the script at the end being like, my pings are really, really important here, but which way they go matters so much based on what demon it is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would just say that I think one of the reasons I stuck Farmer on the script is because they're like the Fangu, the Vigor Mortis, and the Legion can all have fun with that. If they know it's not in play, they can try to pull off some things and convince town that this really is a farmer chain. I promise. So I just, I think it's the best. I mean, it depends on the exact game state, but I think of the I get a special bonus when I die at night. I think it's maybe the most fun for those 3 rules.
Awesome. In which case, I think we're ready to move on to our penultimate section. Unless there's anything else on interactions.
Nope.
Nope. We have spent almost 4 hours talking mostly just about the script here. So, like, we've been extremely thorough.
About a quarter of that on the Pixie. Okay, then we'll talk about our penultimate section. We'll start with you, as always, Mullibok, our guest. You pull a character from the bag. You get a quick look at it. The only thing that you see is that it is blue. What do you want it to be? And what are you going to do with it?
This does tie into our question before about what are my favorite characters in the game. I think it's definitely either the Noble or the Chef. I think I might prefer Noble slightly here, specifically because it is a Legion script and there's just so much of an interesting puzzle to piece together from that without it like Chef kind of waves it in your face if it's Legion or not, but I think Noble could be like more fun and potentially like as or more powerful if you unlock it. So just like figuring out what the deal is with those 3 players could help unlock the game. So I'd go with that.
Okay. Maybe?
I mean, I'm going to say either Fortune Teller or Farmer, right? It's not Raven Keeper, but it's the most Raven Keeper adjacent.
Yeah. I think on a script like this, the best thing that I can do is look to see what I can do in terms of confirmation. So I think I'm going to go with the Pixie here. And like I said earlier, I'm quite tempted to just claim to be the Pixie. But it really depends on what I get shown, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So, next question. And it's the same question, Mullibok, except this time the glimpse that you see is red. What you doing?
So I think with these, I have not been the Boom Dandy very often, and I remember like really, really clearly one time I was a it was in a poppy grower game, and I was like working with somebody to get out their information. I was like, okay, I'll take your I'll take your role. I spread out your information, and that just got the demon to kill me right away. And so I was like, well, that didn't work. Now, so I've never experienced the joy of myself detonating. So I think I'd go for that until I can get that to happen.
It is really fun.
Navian?
I mean, Poisoner, right? It's gotta be.
And what are you doing with it?
Causing havoc. Maybe, hopefully, finding a farmer and having myself or a demon pick up the farmer claim, ruining a mare win at the end. Like, as a poisoner, I am just gonna go fucking ham. Other than the top 3, like, you start knowing rules, pretty much everything else is like great to hit after the first night. And maybe like a spent huntsman or seamstress, meh. But like everything else, I'm probably happy to hit as a poisoner.
Yeah. I am also taking the poisoner, and I'm going to bookend this conversation by referring to what I said right at the start of this discussion and saying that I am pointing night 1 straight at my demon. What's the worst thing that happens?
Oh, right. Yes, of course, the poisoner vortox thing. I already have forgotten about that. I need to file that away into like plans.
Yeah. Vortox on the script and you're the poisoner. There's no downside, you know? Yeah, you can mess with a librarian's info. Or you can pick the demon. It's everyone's info. By not messing with it, ironically.
And then making them think they're safe later on, and then no, you lose when you don't execute anybody on Final Four.
Yep.
True.
Or the fortune teller, or you manage to find some way to drunk the fortune teller for a night, and then they go and pick the red herring on the one night. Okay.
God damn it! Yes.
Yeah. In which case, I think we are done with the script as it exists, and we move on to a final section, which is going to be to talk about changes that we would like to see. We've not really talked about much in the way of changes. The only thing that you have possibly mentioned, Negan, is a way to get an evil monk in a vortox game. How would you go about that?
I mean, like, I don't really think there's a whole lot of room on the script to do that. What do I think actually could get changed out for a bounty hunter? I could, you could maybe change something out, but I also think that all of these roles have an interesting place on this script in their own right. So I'm not necessarily campaigning for that. I just personally think that scenario is fucking hilarious.
So here's a way that we could see it as an option. Serenovus out, Pit Hag in. I'm not sure that the Pit Hag breaks anything on the script, and I'm not sure that the Serenovus makes anything on the script. I think it gives the evil team a little bit more flexibility in how they want to play the game. The Serenovus certainly has a place on the script, but I think the Pit Hag could do some really quite interesting things. Although it does run the risk of having the quite boring play pattern of creating a Fangu, creating an outsider, introducing said Fangu to said outsider, which is always kind of boring to see on S&V. But, it is there.
Yeah, I think that's a really decent suggestion.
I do like the idea of pit hagging the evil twin into the boob titty. That sounds really funny.
Oh, that is quite funny.
That does sound funny.
But ultimately, it isn't our ideas that matter. Mullibok, how do you see the script? How do you see the script changing in the future, if at all?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we did go over a few reasons today why the widow might be a good thing to have on for Pixie reasons, for librarian reasons, etc. So I definitely want to think more about like the widow package we talked about earlier, where some of the kick off some of the mechanical stuff, put in some more information stuff, and make it a widow instead of a poisoner.
I actually think, like, despite the fact that the poisoning your vortox on night one is just objectively hilarious and could result in a really fascinating game, I do actually think overall on the script I prefer widow to poisoner.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing those two minions switched for those other two minions, but yeah, I think Widow in for Poisoner could certainly prove interesting in ways that Poisoner doesn't, but I think Poisoner gives things that Widow doesn't. So
yeah,
really, that's all on the sort of direction you want to take the script, I think.